Okay, you're live.
Okay, let's call to order the City Council regular meeting for October 26, 2021. Before we call the roll, the city attorney has an announcement.
Good evening, everyone. Assembly Bill 361 suspends certain provisions of the Brown Act, allowing public meetings like this one to be held by teleconference to help prevent the spread of COVID-19. I ask the mayor to recognize me after roll call to confirm certain matters for the record.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Armstrong.
Here.
Councilmember Burrows.
Here.
Councilmember Zafar.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perkins.
Here.
Mayor Hudson.
Here.
Thank you.
We recognize the city attorney.
Thank you. Based on responses to the roll call, please let the record reflect that all council members can hear the proceedings clearly. And if there are no objections, the record will also reflect that each council member believes, based on voice or facial recognition or otherwise, that persons representing themselves here to be council members are in fact council members. And seeing thumbs up from the council, I will turn the meeting back to you, Mr. Mayor, with a reminder that all votes must be taken by roll call.
Okay, thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item is announcements 3.1. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda this evening?
There are none this evening.
Okay, item 3.2. If you wish to speak under public comment or regarding an agenda item, please click the raise your hand button on your computer or *9 on your telephone to request to speak when public comment is being taken on the agenda item. You will then be unmuted when it is your turn to make your comments for up to 3 minutes. After the allotted time, you will then be remuted. At this time, I would like to remind all speakers of the following guidelines for participation in this public hearing. I may briefly interrupt your testimony in order to encourage compliance with these guidelines. So when you are speaking, it is important to keep these in mind. No profanity or obscenity, refrain from personal threats or attacks, respect all people, refrain from hateful epithets and demeaning language based on hate of a person's race, religion, sexual orientation, ethnicity, gender, or disability. Respect all people that are present or watching. At my discretion, I may remove any speaker for the duration of today's meeting for any of the following reasons: exceeding the allotted time to speak, yelling, screaming, or other behavior that renders this council unable to continue the meeting, excessive profanity or slander, specific threats or fighting words that incite violence, speech that is outside the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council or the specific agenda item in which you are speaking. Okay, I'm sure everybody has all of those memorized. Our next item is 3.3, boards, committees, and commission meetings. A complete list of upcoming meetings may be found on the city website at www.sanramon.ca.gov. Subscription service is available at the link for automatic meeting notification. Contact the city clerk with questions, 925-973-2539. Public comment is now open. At this time, the public is permitted to address the city council on items that are on the consent calendar. That's 5.1 through 512, including a request to pull an item from the consent calendar. Have we received any written to pull an item from the consent calendar?
I did not receive any written for tonight's meeting.
Okay, requests for future agenda items. Special presentation items under section 6 of tonight's agenda. That would be 6.1 or 6.2. Have we received any requests for either one of those?
No.
And items that are not on the agenda. Okay, let me see who we have. Oh, lots of people here today. Okay. I don't see anybody with a raised hand that wishes to speak under public comment. Let me ask if there are any written and give people a chance to get in, if just in case something's not right here. But do we have any written comments?
We have no written comments.
Okay, I don't see any attendees that wish to speak. I'll ask one more time if there are any attendees that wish to speak under public comment. That would be 451 through 12 or 6.1? Seeing no hands, we will close the public hearing. Consent calendar is now open. Items considered routine in nature are acted upon by the city council with a single action. We have no members of the audience that wrote in to pull an item. Is there anyone on the council that wishes to pull an item? I don't have. I have a motion from Zafar.
I'll second.
And a second from Perkins. I assume that's what your hand was about. Is there any further discussion on the item? Vice Mayor, members of the council, seeing none, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Veros,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson.
Yes,
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0.
sounds like a 5-0 to me. Okay, next item is 6.1, introduction of the new Parks and Community Service Administrative Analyst. And this will be done by Kathy Hyman, our Parks and Community Service Director. Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I think, is Christina bringing May in?
She's in.
Perfect. Well, I am so very pleased to introduce May Malinik, our new Administrative Analyst for the Parks and Community Services Department. We're really excited to have May on board. She holds a Bachelor's of Science in Business Administration and Marketing with a minor in music and a Master's of Public Administration from the University of San Francisco. Prior to this position, she was the Assistant Director of the University of San Francisco's Pleasanton campus, where she oversaw marketing, communications, outreach, budget management, and recruitment, just to name a few things. May is a member of the American Society of Public Administration and the Conference of Minority Public Administrators. And finally, May is an East Bay native, and May and her family have paused their project of visiting all the California state parks because before she even was hired here, they had started visiting San Ramon parks. They are currently a quarter of the way through visiting all of San Ramon's parks. So that's one of their family's weekend activities, to go out and visit a park. In fact, she just had her son's 5th birthday party at Rancho Amador Community Center and the park. So May is very enthusiastic about serving the San Ramon community. She's a great addition to our staff, and we're just so pleased that she decided to come and join public sector. So May, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, take about 20 minutes, May. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, and good evening, Mayor Hudson and members of the City Council. It is my absolute pleasure to meet you. I'm thrilled to work in collaboration with all of you in service to the City of San Ramon, and I'm also so happy to be with Parks and Community Services.
Outstanding. Okay, any questions or comments from the council? Vice Mayor, seeing no hands, they're all ready. Oh, there we go. Sabina, you have the floor.
Just want to say welcome, May, and thank you so much for joining the team. Welcome.
Yeah, we'll see you in the halls if we ever get back to City Hall. All of us we'll have a party just for that. I will tell you, there's this nice little park on the the bottom end of Maui you might want to try. Scott Perkins.
No, I'm just going to welcome May, and I think it's fabulous to go out and visit all the parks. I have been to all the parks, and it really helps when they start discussions and they talk about, different parks in different parts, Ramona Park and Piccadilly Park and all the others that what people are talking about. And thank you for joining us, and hope you enjoy working in San Ramon.
Thank you.
Scott. Sridhar.
Hi, May. Welcome aboard. San Ramon, Parks and Community Services are considered as a jewel of the community. So please continue the same programs what Kathy and predecessors are prior to her, whatever the leadership did. So I hope you continue the same and keep our Parks and Community Services the best they are now.
Thank you, Sridhar. Mark.
I also like to welcome you, May, and you're familiar with East Bay parks, but I'm glad you're going to get to know San Ramon parks even better. We got a great staff. Kathy and her leadership, the whole staff is doing a phenomenal job. And happy birthday to your son. I'm a grandfather now, and my grandson is 1 year old today. So we're celebrating also.
Happy birthday to him, and thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on board, May. Have Have a wonderful evening. Let's keep the rest of this place COVID-free. Love to see you get in here. And Kathy, you still hiding out at the other, what? You're not in here anymore, are you? I never get to see you. See, she learned quick, get away from the mayor, go to another building. Others that you see in these squares, not so lucky. Anyway, look forward to seeing you, May. And there's no council action taken on this. We'll let you have the rest of the evening off. Moving on to 6.2, a recognition of the 2021 Planning Academy graduates. I have an introduction by Debbie Chamberlain, the Community Development Director. It says here I'm giving out presentations and I don't have any presentations, so this should be quick. Go ahead, Debbie, take the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. With a one-year hiatus due to COVID, we are pleased to offer the Academy this fall. Our 20 participants were educated on general plan, zoning ordinance, CEQA, and design review. Sunset Development provided a presentation on the vision behind the City Walk project. What was unique about this year's class, it was the first time the Planning Commission made a decision on our fictional mixed-use project in the great city of Rancho Arroyo. I'd like to thank each participant for their commitment to the class together. They made this year's Academy successful. And with that, I'd like to introduce the 2021 participants. Carol Bassett, Kyle Levy, Dave Owens, Venkata Chinapalli, Wingjing Wu, Dorado Pinaki, Dinesh Govindaro, Virginia Ma, Andy Chow, Diana Corpy, Tracy Noble, Todd Luansky, Yusuf Abdul Karim, Susie Ferris Inderkum, Stephen Breed, Patrick Gutierrez, Pat Adamchek, Saeed Ali, Abhijit Banerjee, and Joseph Chonard. So Christina, I think, was going to promote those who are present tonight. And we have certificates of participation that we will be sending our participants this year.
Well, that makes it easy for me. Are we gonna, I want to hear from each one of these guys since they had to listen to me for 5 minutes. It probably seemed like 20. While we're promoting them in, any comments from the council? Get it in ahead of time. Okay, what, you're too late. Oh, Vice Mayor Perkins. You're muted, but it was a great speech.
Yep. I'm much better that way, actually. I think it's fabulous that Debbie, you and the team were able to conduct this program, and it is such a positive program for the city that you are doing this. And thank you for the participants for coming out and learning about the arcane world of land use and planning. So congratulations to all of you.
And it's changing as fast as you learn it. Okay, let's see if we can hear from some of our attendees. I saw Tracy Noble, I believe you're in. Did you have your hand up?
I did, just to join the group and say thank you, because it was amazing that we were able to have an in-person class since with everything that's gone on in the last year and a half. So I really appreciated it. And it was a great opportunity for all of us to learn. And thank you so much.
Okay, if we got anyone else here who'd like to speak. I see Dinesh, don't tell me you're going to be shy.
No, again, just to echo what Tracy said. I mean, it was definitely, I strongly recommend the Planning Academy for a lot of the, for the citizens of San Ramon. It was a great class, really well run. And, I have such a great appreciation of the whole planning process, and, want to thank all the folks involved with putting it together, because it was a lot of work, and, learned a lot, over those 5 weeks that we were in it. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dinesh. I'm going to go down the line and see if anybody wants to speak. And what the heck? I see I got panelists, everybody on the, oh, there you are. They promoted you in, that's why. Okay, I'll do it off script then. Patrick, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to echo what Dinesh said. Just a great Debbie and city staff, Lauren, everybody, Ryan, they all did such an amazing job. I learned so much about the process, and we just had a great group, and we came to a consensus this time. So that was really good, with great collaboration. And for me, the most enjoyable part was at the end when we got to do the the mock planning commission meeting, and I was selected as a planning commission member, and it was a lot of fun. So just everybody was great in the class. We all bonded. And again, thanks again to everybody. And now I see why the Planning Commission is so detailed after this class. Thank you.
Yes, they are. I'm going to go through the names, and if you're here, you have just a quick, rather than trying to jump all around. Is Carol Bassett here? Kyle, I know you've been here. So, you got to unmute if you want to say something.
Oh, no, I just wanted to, I really appreciate that the city offered this opportunity, and especially during COVID. And I really learned a lot. I think the planning department did an excellent job presenting the material and arranging great speakers.
Okay, and I know I asked Carol is Dave. I see you in the left hand. Everybody's gonna have different boxes. You're on the left hand. They keep moving you guys around. Kyle, you were in the bottom. You moved up. Dave Owen.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, and sorry, I didn't know I was going to be on camera. I wouldn't have picked my Halloween decorations as a background before the city council, but here we are. So this was a really great opportunity. I also did San Ramon Government 101, and I just think it's really awesome that our city does this and they get their, citizens involved, and you can learn, and hopefully you want to take next steps. Because of this, I, am on the Arts Advisory Committee, and I'm looking to get more involved. So great opportunity. Thank the city of San Ramon and all the staff for putting it together.
Okay, thank you. Vinketa, are you here? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, Mayor Hudson, thank you for the opportunity. Yes, actually, we really enjoyed the class. I mean, we felt happy that, the Planning Commission takes so much care in approving any decision, and then the process is so detailed, being it architecture, landscaping, or transportation, everything. So we got to see the entire process. So we really enjoyed the class. I was very happy that I was part of the class, and also looking forward to any future opportunities to contribute to the city of San Ramon. Thank you.
Okay, give me a minute before we move on. You're going to love the next one. None of them are here. I strongly suggest that you come to Planning Commission meetings and speak at public comment. No, she's not smiling. Okay, let's move on. With Jing.
Hi, nice to see everyone here, and thank you so much for the opportunity. I did learn a lot, and especially good to know more ways to get more involved. I would definitely want to learn more and hear more, and maybe speak.
Good. That's what we'd like to hear. Let's go to. Let's stay with right on the line. Gerardo, did I pronounce that right? Is he here? You don't have to speak if I don't see a hand go up. Virginia Ma. No? Andy? Diana Corpy. Oh, I'm moving right along here. Well, we're here. How about Todd Lewandowski? Is he here? I see you're here, Yusuf. That was okay. That's this guy's your next mayor.
Right. No, hold on. Just hold on. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Hudson. Look, I really appreciate the opportunity to learn more about San Ramon. As I joined the class, I think 2 months after moving to the city. Mm-hmm. So it was a fantastic way for me to both meet my fellow neighbors, but also to learn about all of the effort, thoughtfulness, and consideration, and also just vision required to develop a city such as San Ramon. So I want to say again, thank you to Debbie, Lauren, and the rest of the team, Ryan, for doing an amazing job in helping us regular Joes, if you will, get to know the city better. So thank you, and kudos to everyone. Thank you so much.
Well, you know who was a regular Joe in 90, 91, 92? Now I can't get off council. Okay, Susie.
Yes, I will just add to everybody else's kudos for Debbie and Ryan and all of the staff, all of the guests that they brought in to speak. The materials were outstanding. They're great reference materials, and I really appreciated Ryan always following up with an online copy. Because it made it easier to share with people that were also interested but couldn't attend to the program. And I have to say that I was truly impressed with the opportunity to hear some of the actual members talk about their work. the trial project that we had to review gave you a real good sense because it was pretty good size, but I understand it's small by comparison of some of the project materials that the commissioners really have to review. And so you got a real sense of the due diligence that they do for what we learned was a relatively small stipend. So I was very impressed with that. And I have to say with Cindy and some of the other folks that are highly involved with the ever-changing laws and bills that are coming through, I was very impressed to hear the amount of scrutiny that the city does with that, and that you're always looking for ways to make sure that you still have control. And that's really, really important to me, that decisions we're making about growth and changes in this city, that we don't just sit back and say, okay, well, that's the way it has to be. If it's not really good for this community, I'm really thrilled to hear that the city is staying on top of that and looking for ways to be proactively staying in control of what we do with our city. So thank you all. Very impressive.
Okay, is Steve Breed here and then Abjit? Don't see Steve Abjit. Did I pronounce that right?
Hi, Mayor Hudson and council members. My name is Abhijit Banerjee, and again, I'm just going to pile on to what everybody has said. What an incredible opportunity it was to learn about this. I don't think any other city that I've lived provides this program. I moved to San Ramon less than 2 years ago, and I've been part of the Citizens Police Academy with the city of San Ramon, and that was an awesome experience. And I had no idea about how planning goes and all the intricate details. I know there's always two sides of a camp, and people often look at it, man, the city's not looking and doing a right job, or wish they did this and that. But going through that 5 weeks just flew by very quickly and learned a lot. And the mock project was really great. And the entire staff, Debbie, Lauren, Ryan, Cindy, Shanae, if I'm pronouncing them correctly, we learned a lot through all the presentations and the materials that was brought in, and the role playing about the developers and speaking for the project and not supporting the projects and such, where give an insight into like how the whole planning process work and how the government plays into that. You have to satisfy a lot of requirements, and that's not easy. So we learned a lot of newfound appreciation to the entire city government and the planning process. So thank you.
No, thank you. I'm looking at the last three. Let me check over here just to be sure. I don't see Pat, Syed, or Joseph Chouinard. If they're not in here, Syed is here and he has his hand up. Syed, can we bring him in, and Joe Chouinard? I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There he is. You have the floor.
All right.
You're supposed to ask if I can hear you, but go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. I was still muted when I was speaking. So first of all, thank you. This was a great opportunity. It was due for me for quite some time because I've been a resident for about 11 years. So I have always been intrigued about being involved with the city. I have done a few of the work together with you, Mr. Mayor, with the Islamic Center here in San Ramon. So it was always something that I wanted to do. So thanks for that opportunity. The 5 weeks went by really, really quick. There was a lot of learning, and like how my other colleagues summed it up very well, there was something new for us to learn in terms of how the city planning happens and what is the role for the citizens, the developers, and how everyone comes together to make sure the city is run properly and with the eye to how it needs to serve its citizens. So it was a great learning. I'm happy to have learned it from the city staff members, Debbie and their team, They were very good in making sure we had the right members teaching us, as well as the right material. And then at the end, the mock commission was definitely icing on the cake to really be part of something that you all do on a regular basis. So appreciate the opportunity. Happy to be here, and thank you.
Thank you. Joseph, we're going to finish with you. We will be sending certificates to you. Obviously, we can't do live yet, but you'd already heard from me enough on that first meeting, so we'll leave it at wrapping up with Joseph. He was here. Joe, you're on mute. Uh-oh, we didn't get him in. Well, then you're going to have to wrap it up with me. I will just tell you that the same things that you've been learning for the last 5 months are the same thing they've been teaching me for the last 25, actually 30 years. But you never stop learning at this job. It's amazing how fast things can change, and you just have to stay on your toes. And fortunately, we've got a darn good staff that does. We have some comments from our council, Sridhar Barros and then Sabina Zafar.
Thanks, Mayor Hudson. I want to congratulate our 2021 Planning Academy graduates. Thank you for taking your personal time to learn about the land use policies of our city planning. Thanks to Debbie and our planning department for providing this excellent program to our residents. As a graduate of this academy myself in 2017, I know the importance of this program and the knowledge that you can gain from this program. So by the way, just to let you know, one of the most asked questions to me by our community residents is about the land use policies. Most of the questions we get, that I'm sure all the council members get discussions around land use policies from the community residents. So please share your knowledge and bring awareness about assembly bills, Senate bills, RENA numbers that we have to look into, and all those information so that we can plan accordingly how our city is going to be built and the future of our city, especially in and around the land use policies and the significance of it, so that we can build better San Ramon for us as well as for our future generations. Once again, thanks for your involvement in this program.
Thanks, Sridhar. Councilmember Zafar.
Just wanted to add on, say congratulations and thank you so much for spending your Monday evenings learning about city planning. Really appreciate your time. And I also want to thank our staff for going above and beyond and spending their Monday evenings, making sure that we are educating our community about our planning process. You guys are our advocates and you're our eyes and ears. So reach out to us anytime you hear anything, you want to discuss anything, learn about anything more, or you get community feedback. I would always love to hear back from you. And looks like the mock was, the mock, I don't want to call it the trial because that's, that's one of those things.
It comes after the decision.
The mock meeting seems to be the most popular component. And hopefully, this is a pipeline into our future commissioners as well. So congratulations again, and thank you so much. And I would say at the end of it, we all go on video and take a screenshot as a mock picture that we would have done in City Hall.
We'll get them in here. We'll do that. Councilmember Armstrong.
And congratulations to all of you. I see some familiar names and faces in the crowd there. And good job by the staff for pulling this off with all the challenges that we're still all going through. I heard great things about this class and from some of the class members, especially about that mock commission meeting. I look forward to seeing you all at future meetings or future city activities down the road. So great job and congratulations.
Thank you, Mark. Vice Mayor Perkins.
I just wanted to congratulate everyone for sticking with the class, and it is a rather arcane world of planning, and thank you for sticking with it. And you're here to help you. So if you come across something that you don't understand, contact either the planning staff or one of the council, and we'll get you an answer somehow. So thank you for participating, and we really appreciate all the work the staff does too.
I think that pretty much sums it. Thank you so much for staying with this. But forget the remark about the arena numbers. It'll just make you mad. They drive me crazy. I will just say at this time, again, thank you for coming. There's no council action on this that you're going to receive tonight. You will get the certificates in the mail. I hope you, I don't want to say cherish, but take a look at them every once in a while and say, you know, I've got 101. Do I want to do 102? Because I could tell you when you want to change something and you see something that you don't think is correct, you now know who to call, and you now know the process that will start to change. This is the way it starts. You learn a little, then you apply. Again, thank you for coming. Again, I said there's no council action, so we will move on and let you have the rest of the evening to yourselves. We've got to go on, stay here. Of course, if you find it exciting, stick around and watch all the exciting things that we do. There's no deferred consent items tonight. There's no city council appointment. We're on to unfinished business. If they stay under attendees, we'll ask them how we're supposed to vote afterwards. This is a continued public hearing, resolution number 2021-123, approving the North Camino Ramon specific plan amendment and addendum to the environmental impact report 21800-1. Initial study 21250-1, and adoption of ordinance 509, amending the North Camino Ramon specific plan, development standards, and zoning regulations. We will start with the, well, I think we're starting with Cindy on this, aren't we? The senior planner and then the presentation. Let's do it that way. And then you can introduce Cindy. You have the floor.
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor Hudson and members of the City Council. I'm here this evening for the third public hearing on the North Camino Ramon specific plan amendment, as well as the addendum to the environmental document. I just wanted to provide a brief verbal staff report this evening. This is a continuation of a public hearing as required by Measure G. We also have an ordinance before you this evening and for your consideration of the changes to the North Camino Ramon specific plan development standards and zoning regulations. We have attached in your staff report this evening a draft copy of the resolution as well as the ordinance for consideration. Be happy to take any questions that you might have. I know the applicant also has a brief statement they'd like to make. So with that, I can certainly take questions now or hold until the end.
Okay, if I don't see any hands for questions of staff, let's hear from the applicant again. Who's going to start it off, Denise? Everybody loves a volunteer.
Good evening, Mayor Hudson and council members. For the record, I'm Denise Cunningham, VP of Development with Summerhill Homes. We also have Robert Freed, Summerhill CEO, and Kevin Ibrahimi, the Senior VP of Development. Jerry Ingen is also here tonight with Sunset Development. And I'd really like to thank you all for your time this evening and for your support for the amendments to the North Camino Ramon specific plan. We'd also like to express our appreciation to staff. They've been great, Debbie, Lauren, and Cindy, for all of their late nights and efforts in getting this specific plan amendment to this point. And additionally, we'd like to thank the Planning Commission for their diligence and collaboration. And we look forward to returning to the Planning Commission on November 2nd with the project application. And finally, we'd like to thank Jerry Engen and Sunset Development for their continued support throughout the process. And the Summerhill team is here tonight to answer any questions you have. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other further comments before I open the public to the public? I don't see anybody. There's Jerry over on the left. No, we're good. Okay, let's open it to the public. Again, this is a continued public hearing. I don't see any hands up for clarifications. Oh, we're good. Let's go. If you wish to speak under public comment on this item, please raise your hand. Dial *9 on your telephone. Remarks will be limited to, well, if we have this many people raising their hand, take as long as you want. They'd be limited to 3 minutes. I don't see anyone wishing to speak at this time. You've already told me once we have received no cards on this item. Okay, I don't have anybody who wants to speak. Do I have a motion to close the public hearing? Wait a minute, did somebody put a hand up or did I miss something?
I did. I was just going to say, since we have a lot of people today who may not have been in the last meeting and we discussed this extensively,
Yes.
I would say reference back to our last meeting for an extensive discussion on this item.
Yeah, it's been here a
With that, I
while.
can move it.
Okay, we have a motion from Zafar to close the public hearing. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I think we're going to give that one to Sridhar Barros. All right. Any further discussion? This seems to be the non-discussion night. Okay, seeing none, let's have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Veros,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-0.
If we have no further questions or comments of staff, I'll make the motion to adopt resolution number 2021-123, approving an amendment to the North Camino Ramon Specific Plan 21-800-1 and an addendum to the North Camino Ramon Specific Plan Environmental Impact Report, SCH 201-009-2014, and the initial study 21-250-1. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, see, you get in there quick. That's a motion, Mayor, second Vice Mayor. Any further discussion? Wow, we are quiet tonight. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Veros,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion passes 5-0.
Okay, let me move on and I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance 509, an ordinance of the City of San Ramon City Council, adopting an amendment to the North Camino Ramon Specific Plan Development Standards and zoning regulations, and waive the reading of that page-long ordinance. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, second Zafar. She got in there before you again, Scott. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Boy, we are verbose tonight. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Veros,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
Mayor Hudson.
Yes. Sounds like a 5-0 on all of them to me. I would just say good luck. Thank you for the hard work put into this for Team Summerhill, and we look forward to hearing from you in November. Thanks again. All right, we won't keep you tonight. We'll move right on to 9.2, which is a resolution number 2021-124, authorizing the issuance of pension obligation bonds to refund certain outstanding obligations of the city to the California Public Employees Retirement System, Calpers, authorizing the execution of a first supplemental trust agreement, adopting a pension funding policy, and authorizing certain other matters relating thereto. Kelly Sessions, there you are. You have the floor, our Administrative Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a pleasure to be here tonight. We've had this conversation before, and it's kind of been a long time coming, so looking forward to finishing this conversation. We are inviting in some of the financing team. I don't quite see they're all here yet, but I will go ahead and introduce them. Stephen Gortler is our municipal advisor. Russ Trice is bond counsel with Norton Rose Fulbright. We have Dan Matusewicz, who is our consultant from Gov Invest. You might recall Dan was with us back in April when we had, or March actually, when we had that Saturday budget hearing. And also Brian Whitworth, who is the underwriter from Hilltop Securities. So City Clerk, if you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead and pull up the PowerPoint presentation. Great, thank you. Go ahead and switch to the next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to do some background information here. Some of this you've seen, but it's good just as a refresher. The city of San Ramon has an estimated unfunded accrued liability, also called a UAL, of approximately 36.5 million in its employee pension plans. A UAL represents the present value of future benefits that plan members have earned, but for which no money has been set aside. So this is money that our pension plan is short. Under California law, the UAL is a legal debt, just like any other debt obligation that we might have. Calpers currently charges the city an annual interest rate, or also called the discount rate, of 7% on its UAL, unfunded accrued liability. Calpers is scheduled to lower the discount rate beginning in fiscal year 2023-24. Okay, next slide, please. So why would we want to issue pension obligation bonds? The long-term interest rates are currently near historic low levels. For example, the city today can issue 20-year pension obligation bonds at an effective interest rate of approximately 2.5%. Instead of paying Calpers an expected rate of 6.5% on its UAL debt, or what's currently 7%, the city can issue pension obligation bonds at an estimated rate of about 2.5%, and then use the proceeds that we get from those bonds to refinance our UAL debt. The difference between the expected Calpers discount rate and the estimated 2.5% bond rate represents expected savings to the city. Actual experience can vary because all of these estimates, they are estimates and they come with a set of assumptions, and we'll get into that in a bit. Next slide, please. Here is an interest rate slide that you have seen before. This is the historical interest rate trends for 10-year US Treasury notes. And this is kind of the benchmark for the interest rate. You can see all the way back in 1962, all the way to 2021. It has been a long and steady, slow decline in interest rates, and we are at this historical low period now. Next slide, please. So over the past year, there's been a lot of cities that have issued pension obligation bonds. In fact, I want to say about 40 plus cities, if I recall correctly, how many are on this list, have issued over $6.2 billion worth of pension obligation bonds. Next slide. This is what the expected interest rates are. You'll see the top blue line is the expected Calpers discount rate that we think is going to be 6.5%. That's what we're basing our estimates on. And then the interest rate that we would pay on the bonds. So that wide margin between the flat blue line at the top and the interest rate at the bottom, that represents the margin or the difference, and would be savings, interest savings to the city. Okay, next slide. So this slide here is really packed full of information. And I suspect that this is the slide where we will be spending quite a bit of time talking about. The first bullet point there, the expected Calpers discount rate. The Calpers discount rate has been declining for many years, from 8.25% in 2003 to 7% today. The Calpers discount rate is scheduled to decline further to 6.8% in fiscal year 23-24. And that's because of the triggered by the 21.3% return that Calpers had last fiscal year, triggered by the risk mitigation policy. Each time that the Calpers lowers the discount rate, the UAL increases. If you remember, the discount rate is the same as the estimated investment return rate. So if investment returns decrease, the benefits to the employees that are retiring stays the same, then it goes to show that the costs are going to increase in order to make up for that difference. The San Ramon pension obligation bond assumes a further decrease in the Calpers discount rate to 6.5%. That one is really important. We know in 23-24, the discount rate is going to go to 6.8%. Our belief and the way that we have structured this deal and done all of our analysis is based on the fact that we believe the Calpers discount rate will drop to 6.5%. It may not happen this year or the year after that, or even the year after that, but we do believe that based on historical trends, based on the direction that the rate has been going and the pressure from outside organizations and politicians and everything else, is to continue to push that rate down. Assuming a Calpers discount rate of 6.5% rather than 6.8% really changes the size of the bonds, the amount of bonds that we would be selling by about $10 million. So these very slight changes have a very significant effect on the bond sizing. Next bullet point, targeted funded ratio. A targeted funded ratio of 95%, meaning that we would cover 95% of our UAL, equals a bond issue of approximately just about $24 million. If we are targeting a funded ratio of 98%, that means a bond issue of approximately $32 million. If you recall, the last time we talked about this at our workshop, we presented a scenario at 92%, 95%, and 100%. And we heard and listened to what council was saying. You wanted to bump up the funded ratio a little bit. So we dropped out the 92% and settled at 95%. As a reminder, the city also has $5.2 million in its Section 115 trust fund. That money is set aside for other obligations, pension obligations, and it would be available if we wanted to use that as a supplement to these bond proceeds that we're setting aside. So that is kind of an extra savings that we have in our back pocket should the UAL increase and we want to pay that off again. When you consider the Section 115 trust, for instance, with the 98% funded ratio, that basically puts us at 100% funding. Again, if you consider that extra 5.2 million. Now, the staff recommendation that we put out was to take a conservative approach at 95%. There are so many variables in this. And when in doubt, our belief is to go smaller. But we can continue to discuss that and hear some of your input. The next bullet is the last one that we spent a lot of time talking about last time also is the structure of debt service payments. We are proposing a level annual debt service payment for various reasons, primarily to enhance our budgetary flexibility. As revenues and inflation increase over time, you have these level service payments that go out many years. So with increasing expenses and inflation, those level payments actually become a smaller share of your budget over time. The irregular or up and down annual debt service payments can disrupt budgetary stability. And that is basically what the cities and agencies that belong to Calpers are, complain about on a regular basis is just the volatility in the Calpers UAL payments, because it's constantly going up and down. And so again, we're recommending level service payments, and we can discuss that more as well. Next slide, please. So this is what the pension obligation bonds would look like. Option number one, again, 23.79 million with a 95% funded ratio and level annual debt service. We'll see these graphed on the next slide. Option two, 31.66 million with a 98% funded ratio and level annual debt service. Option three is about 24 million with a 95% funded ratio. And this is level for several years and then declines on the last few years. And option four, 31.7 million with a 98% funded ratio, and again, level declining annual debt service. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are the graphs that we saw at our last workshop. The scenarios have changed a little bit. So option one is level payments throughout the life of the bond. If you remember, the red bars equal the UAL payment that we would be making to Calpers. So everything above the dotted line would be a savings to the city on an annual basis, and the gap between the line and the bars at the bottom would be additional payments that we would make at the end of these debt service payments. So option one, you can see the line is right about $2 million. So that's about a $2 million annual payment for a total cost of about 27.8 million. If you look right next to that scenario two, it is the same fund level payment structure, but this is at the 98% funded level. So we would be taking on more bonds, and so the payments naturally would go up. So the payment on this is 2.65 million per year for a total payment expense of $37 million. Scenario number three, there is a slight lower payment in year one of the bonds, a leveling out for about 10 years of the bonds, and then declining the last 3 years or so of the bonds. Number three scenario, the total cost is 27.5 million. The annual payments, let's see, the first year is about 1.8 million. The annual level payments are about 2.1 million. And then million, 1.5 million, and the last year is about 1.1 million. On each of these payment plans, you'll notice that the payment ends in year 2036. So we would be dropping off those last 3 years to reduce the length of the amortization. And lastly, scenario 4, again, the shape of the payment is the same. It's just at a 98% funded level. So we would be selling more bonds, taking on more debt for a total cost of 36.5 million. Year 1 would start at about 2.5 million. Level payments for about 9 or 10 years of 2.8 million. Then a reduction to 2.3 million, 2.0 million, and the last year, 1.5 million. Next slide, please. So this is what the savings would look like. Option 1, again, level debt service payments, total savings from what we would have paid to Calpers if we continue to pay our UAL is about 6.9 million. That is equal to about 6.1 million in present value and a present value savings of 26%. Option 2, the same level debt service payment, but at a 98% funded ratio. Total savings, 9.3 million. Present value savings actually of about 8.2 million and 26.3%. And then option 3, again, where we switch to the mostly level payments with a tailing end, 7.2 million in total savings with a present value savings amount of 6.2 million and 26.6% present value savings. And lastly, option 4 at the same payment shape at a 98% funded ratio, $9.7 million in savings, which is equal to about 8.4 in present value savings and 26.8%.
A question on this
Go ahead,
slide.
Scott.
Yes, please.
Options 3 and 4 in year 2032 and 2033 show that we have negative savings. That wasn't apparent on the graph. If we look at the graph on 3 and 4, can we go back to the graph on 3 and 4? Whoops, there we go. So, okay. So there is a slight on 3 and 4. There's those 2 years where we have negative savings, as opposed to 1 and 2, the last 5 years or so, you have essentially negative savings, except for the last 3 years, which are common. Okay, that helps. Thank you. I'm taking the numbers and looking at the charts cleared up my question. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we've covered that one. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Estimated sources and uses of funds. Options 1 and 3 at a 95% funded ratio. The amount of bonds that we would take out is the same, $23.79 million in par amount of bonds. Options 2 and 4 at a 98% funded ratio. Same thing, they cost the same. The par amount of the bonds is the same, $31.66 million. The uses of the funds, options 1 and 3 at a 95% funded ratio, we would be sending 23.4 million to Calpers. Estimated cost of issuance is 345,000 for a total expense of $23.79 million. On the 98% funded ratio, bonds totaling 31.3 million. Estimated cost of issuance, a little over 383,000 for the $31.66 million figure. Estimated costs of issuance, you can see there what the expense is for each and every member of the team. As a reminder, if the city council chooses or decides not to issue bonds, and that can be right up to the very last minute, then all of these expenses are contingent, except for the rating agency expense. So we would end up spending approximately $30,000 on that in either scenario. And we also have contingency funding there at the bottom of the list there, 27,000, 26,000, just for any unexpected expenses. Next slide, please. Again, a reminder, we went over this pretty extensively with all of you at our last meeting. In 2015, the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, stated the following. GFOA recommends that state and local governments do not issue pension obligation bonds. And then they gave several reasons, or a few reasons why. The first one, if Calpers lowers its discount rate below the pension obligation bond rate, then the debt service on the pension obligation bonds may exceed what it would have cost us to repay the UAL debt. Or perhaps Calpers investment returns get so bad that the investment returns don't materialize, and what we pay on our bonds would exceed what we would have paid to Calpers. In other words, the city could be worse off than if it had never issued pension obligation bonds. Next bullet, however, the interest rates are very low right now, and the spread, that difference between the expected Calpers discount rate, which again, we're taking a very conservative approach at 6.5%, and the expected pension obligation bond rate of 2.5% is very wide, total of 4%. This essentially is the same as refinancing your house mortgage with a lower interest rate. Last bullet, because the spread is so wide, the risk that Calpers will lower its discount rate below the pension obligation bond rate is relatively low. Next slide, please. Next steps that we would be taking if council approves this is we expect to get our credit rating from Standard & Poor's on October the 27th. A pre-sale marketing of the bonds to potential investors would be happening between October 28th and November the 5th. The sale of the bonds to the investors, subject to market conditions where we lock in the interest rates, would be the week of November the 8th, with the bond closing the week of November 22nd. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions you may have, to discuss anything you may wish to discuss about the bond structure, and hopefully we seek your approval to go ahead and issue pension obligation bonds.
Okay, thank you, Director. I'm going to ask the Finance Committee to chime in first, since we've got about 4 hours before you're going to do the pre-sale marketing. You've seen it the most. Your opinions, thoughts, What do you think?
Couple of things. I went to 3 different presentations at the league meetings, and at no time did, in fact, they specifically said that the board did not request any information related to discount rates below 6.5. They're looking forward in their investment strategies to support a discount rate, and they have more than a dozen scenarios of how they do private equity and bonds and the general stock market and real estate, and how they different strategies. In all cases, they were only looking at strategies that would support a discount rate of 6.5 or higher. I thought that was very telling because they already know that they're going to drop it to 6.8 in the 23-24 timeframe. And so looking farther into the future, they're not seeing, and they look long-term on these things, they're not looking at rates below 6.5. Given that, and a 6.5, I think you mentioned 6.5 adds about 10 million to our UAL. Is that correct? Did I understand that right?
Yes.
And so that pushes our UAL right now from 36 million up to about 46 million. Do I have that right?
No, the current UAL is 36.5 million.
Right. And if you
that's the amount that we would be paying off.
Okay. And if you add 10 million to that, it's 46 million. Did I miss something there?
I don't know. I don't think that.
I thought you said that changing it to 6.5 adds 10 million to our UAL.
Okay. Yes, you're correct. Right.
Okay. So 36 plus 10 is 46 is my math. Is that not correct?
Stephen, it looks like you had something you wanted to chime in with.
Yeah, just the $36 million estimated UAL that you referenced, that's the amount that would be under assuming a 6.5% discount rate. That number is $10 million or thereabouts, really $11 million higher than what it would be if we were to assume a 6.8%.
Okay.
So it's a little backwards.
Okay. So the 36 is based upon a 6.5.
Correct. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. Based upon, yeah, Sabina and I sat through this and we talked a lot about these different scenarios and all. And I absolutely agree that having flat or declining payments serves our budget needs best. And so I'm inclined to go with numbers 3 or 4. And honestly, I don't recall talking about 98%, but I'm inclined to go with the 98% or number 4, which generates the highest total savings and generates the highest percentage savings. And with the remaining $5 million in our pension trust, we can either use it to supplement our payments in years if our revenues are particularly hurt in a given year. We could choose to use some of that 115 trust, or we can use it to pay it off at the end as time goes on. But I'm inclined with I like option number 4 the best.
Okay, Councilmember Zafar.
Yeah, I think so. We all, I remember we had a special meeting around it and all of us kind of gave, asked Kelly to come back with the best recommendation based on the feedback. And Kelly, do you have a recommendation for us based on that last meeting that we had, or do you want us to go through the process of kind of, again, picking?
Yeah, well, the staff recommendation is a 95% funded ratio.
Yeah.
And all of the estimates are based at 6.5 6.5% discount rate. One thing that is very clear as I've worked through this with our experts is that this is as much art as it is science. So this is not just a math problem that we can solve. We have to make a lot of assumptions. There's a lot of variables and things that, you know, we actually have no idea what's going to happen in the markets tomorrow. You know, if there's a huge downturn in the economy, or if all of a sudden Calpers starts earning 21% every year. If they did that, then all of a sudden the UAL amount would be zero. So we are taking a little bit more of a conservative approach in our recommendation at 95%, just because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. If we get to an overfunded status, it's not that we lose any money. The money is there with Calpers. It's basically banked with Calpers, but that money gets stranded. So we cannot take it back. We can't get it and use it for other things. We can't say, hey, we don't want to pay our normal cost anymore. We want you to use the money that we have with Calpers already. The money basically just sits there. So, and you know, if we got to an overfunded status of 2 or 3 or 5%, maybe even 7 or 8 or 9%, that's probably not a huge thing. Maybe, you know, some of our residents would say, great, you guys are 100% funded on your UAL. Not a problem. We're glad to see that you have money put away. But when it starts getting more than that, then it starts introducing a lot of other political pressures that can come in, and it opens the city up to criticism in terms of why, you know, our financial management and why we have taken all this money from the taxpayers, and now it's stuck at Calpers and we're not doing anything with it. So, you know, there's a real balancing act here that needs to happen. And the more we spend up on the UAL or get closer to that 100% funded ratio, particularly with the POBs, the less flexibility we have in terms of paying off the debt on in a way that makes sense. And every year, as you know, every year the assumptions change and the actuarial report changes. These are a lot of estimates. So there's a lot of, again, a lot of assumptions that have gone into this. And we are recommending a bit more conservative approach at the 6.5% discount rate at 95% funded ratio. Did that answer your question, Councilmember Zafar?
It did. And is that option 1?
Okay, so that would be option 1, and well, option 1 is the preferred recommended approach from staff. Yes, correct. Option 3 is also a 95% funded ratio, but that one does not have the slightly lower annual payments that are level throughout the length of the amortization.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Mayor.
Just having a field day, aren't you? Okay, Armstrong and Veros.
All right, so some of these numbers make my head hurt. First, I'd say, yeah, I'm in favor of proceeding with issuing the bonds. I'll start with that. And then I do like the idea of the level payments, but all of them have level payments to some degree. You know, I think it was 3 and 4 had the level payments for the 10 years and then dropping off. I think they've all, I think 3 and 4 are attractive to me in that they have a good present value savings rate and a pretty decent present value savings. And frankly, 3 is only slightly lower than 4, but I think with 3, what you get is maybe a little bit less risk, and just, I think, can weather the potential variables and assumptions. So I'd be inclined to go with 3. I'd be okay with 4, quite frankly. And that's where I stand at this point.
Thank you.
Sridhar.
Kelly, thanks for presentation and all your help with making us understand through this process. So one question I have is regarding 95% fund, right? So with 95% fund plus our trust Vermont 5.2 million, I'm looking at the slide or packet page 376. It says we will be at 97% funded.
Correct. So if you consider the 95% funded ratio plus the 5.2 million that we have in the Section 115 trust, that puts us at about a 97-point-something% funded ratio.
And that leaves us like 3%, that margin that leaves us like around 3.5 million, I think, around 3.5 to somewhere close to that number, I think. Correct.
And if I could just, again, remind the council that the discount rate is scheduled to drop to 6.8% in fiscal year 23-24. To Councilmember Perkins' earlier comment, the staff at Calpers presents certain investment scenarios. The Calpers board gives direction as to what type of discount rate they would like to look at. And so right now we know that the discount rate is dropping, should drop to, well, it will drop to 6.8% in 23-24, unless the board takes some different kind of action against their own policy, which they just recently set, this risk mitigation policy. We don't know that the UAL or that the discount rate will drop to 6.5%. We are basically, we believe that that will be the case based on the historical trend and just what other public employees retirement systems are doing, based on what the staff recommendations are year after year. We believe that the discount rate will fall further. But that is, these assumptions are based on that discount rate of 6.5%, but we just don't know if that will actually materialize. So this lower funded ratio of 95% gives us a little bit of coverage if for some reason that 6.8% discount rate did not lower for many years. The 6.8% discount rate, excuse me 1 minute here. The 6.8% discount rate, I don't see my notes, but is roughly equivalent, or I should say the 6.5% discount rate is roughly equivalent to 6.8% if the 6.8% is equivalent to 100% funded status at 6.8% if 6.8% never lowers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that.
No, actually, that makes sense.
Sorry.
Go ahead. Were you? I'm sorry. Who had the floor? You got it. Keep going.
Thank you. So if we proceed with the bond, are we still going to continue to contribute? Is the plan to continue to contribute for Section 115 trust?
That would be a decision, a policy decision of the council. We do have a policy that when the council feels so inclined and there are funds to do so, that the city can still put aside funds in a Section 115 trust. If I recall correctly, what that policy says, it doesn't mandate that funds be set aside, but the option is certainly there. I guess we would want to take that on a year-by-year basis, as we currently do, to see if it would make sense to continue to set aside funds in the future for Section 115.
Okay. And I asked this question in the last meeting also about our normal cost. Let's say if we are not going with any bond, what will be our normal cost? How much we'll be paying?
The normal cost and the UAL are two separate calculations. So the normal cost will not change based on whether we issue pension obligation bonds or not, or based on, you know, what our UAL is.
Okay. So if currently what is our payment? How much we pay for our pension for Calpers?
Last year we paid for UAL, we paid 2.2 something million, if I recall correctly, for the UAL.
Oh, okay.
And I don't have the normal cost on the top of my head. I'd have to look that up.
Okay, that's fine. Thanks.
Yeah,
So
let me
based
chime
on
in.
so based on the from my feedback for this is like 95% sounds good for me based on our current trust fund, 115 trust fund that we already have 5.2, and if we can continue to add or to this trust fund, that will give us more buffer time for us, so that we can, whatever the buffer that we receive, like for example, what are the difference that we have in future, we can fill in that gaps, I think, with that Section 115 trust. So that's one. And also, as you said, if by any chance, if Calpers come back and give a better discount for us, then we can at least use that for the remaining piece of the payments that we are supposed to do. And regarding the option number 3 is the one I'm inclining towards. The reason is because right now, as I mentioned even in my previous meeting, that initially that will give us some time during this COVID situation of uncertainty. So initially it will give us some time to buy and see how things falls into the whole picture, so we can have some breathing time for these few years, and then after that we can get into study. And once we get a stage where we can hey, if I remember right, you mentioned that we can even refinance it if we are at a stage where we can really complete it, finish the payment. So that's one of the reasons I'm thinking of going with option 3. So thanks, Billy.
Thank you.
Okay, I think if you'd asked me this and I sat back and looked at it over the weekend or whatever, I probably would have been very close to what Vice Mayor Perkins was saying in 3 and 4. But after a while, you start looking at these things and you see how up and down some of these markets have been, and risk starts popping more into your head. And I'm stepping back thinking, if I were a resident listening to this and everything we just heard, I really would want the 95. I'm ruling out the 98 right away. It makes, you're going to save more, you're going to do, but we don't know. It's not so much the 6.8 and the 6.5. I keep thinking, when you said that in 2003 we were at 8 or something like that, it's like, my goodness, if we don't do something, in other words, an obligation bond, and it went the opposite way, people are really going to nail us. But I'm getting a little bit more concerned. I like the flat fee, the cost that you had in option 1, especially if we go inflationary. I'm not going to cry if it goes 3. I'm just not going to jump up and down if you want to go 2 and 4. So that I'm maybe I'm listening to you, Kelly. I'm getting old or something. But the idea of this risk aversion, folks, I was here when some wrong estimates went in, and all of a sudden that pot that we called reserves was like, huh, where'd it go? Anyway, Vice Mayor Perkins, I think you had your hand up first. Go ahead.
After listening to the discussion and Kelly's recommendation, I'm more inclined to go with option 3. I really do appreciate the fact that it has only 2 years where we have negative savings, and I like the fact that it's flat for most of the time period, and then it follows the UAL or the amount we would have paid into Calpers going forward. So, and I recognize that the 98% is a higher risk in some ways, but so I'm inclined that option number 3. I think it serves us best overall. You get a slight discount in your next year, then flat, and then it follows the UAL payments down to essentially 0.
Okay, Sabina, round out finance, and then we'll go to Mark and Sridhar.
Yeah, I was actually, after listening to everybody and listening to Kelly's explanation of why we should go with option 1, I'm certainly leaning towards that, just because it makes, sense that if we end up in a position where we are, we've got more money now that we are trying to take out and have residents questioning us that, why. So I like the level of risk we're taking and future projections and how markets might change. And I'm certainly leaning towards option 1, which I think makes, 3 looks great. It makes sense, but when, Kelly's probably been doing the art and the science a little bit longer than I have, at least. So I would trust his recommendation over this.
Okay, that's 2 for 1. Let's put the pressure on Armstrong and Burroughs. Armstrong, you're up.
Well,
I'll fold like a tent if they said 3. Go ahead.
I appreciate Kelly's recommendation, and it makes a lot of sense to me. I'm going to kind of stick with number 3, but I wanted to ask a question, and it may have been answered a little bit already, but so just tell me to be quiet if it has been. But what's the possibility of us issuing bonds and we become overfunded? And what do we do in an overfunded situation down the road?
So possibility of becoming overfunded, that's really, really difficult to say. I don't think anybody really knows that, just because the market conditions can change and there's so many assumptions that go into this. I think if we wanted to look at it, we could look at it from a historical perspective. I have enough gray hair to remember back in the 90s when the system was actually overfunded. We were funded, I want to say, at about 125% or so. And that's when the new benefits got introduced. The Sheriff's Association with the state of California started pushing, well, let me back up a second. Cities were taking what was called a rate holiday. So cities stopped paying into Calpers just because there was so much money. The Sheriff's Association was able to get in with the politicians and increase the benefit to the 3% at age 50 benefit program, which did not exist before then. And so there started to be these other outside pressures that all of a sudden, in just a few years, that 125% funded ratio flipped. And then, then the system was back to its very kind of fickle self, with payments going up and down, changing all the time. So in terms of the opportunity for being overfunded, certainly the higher ratio that we go, if we go to a 98% funded ratio, with all the assumptions we have in place, that definitely increases the possibility of being overfunded. Our assumptions are based on a 6.5% funded status, but we're looking at that 6.5% basically over the next 15 years or so is where we think the rates are going, where we believe the rates will go. But they're currently at 7%. So, and they will stay at 7% until 23-24, unless the Calpers board takes action to change the rates further. Perhaps we get another great investment year next year or in the current fiscal year, and all of a sudden we've got a 21% investment return. That would seriously lower our UAL. The UAL used to be, the 2020 UAL was over $40 million. It was, I want to say, if I remember, 45.6 million. That single year of 21.3% investment return dropped the UAL by $10 million. So the formulas and the calculations are really sensitive to externalities and things that are just basically beyond our control. So, that's one reason why we're recommending a lower funded rate. Now, if we went to a higher rate, would we be the first city to do that? Not at all. A lot of cities are doing it. But and some of our experts may want to speak to this further, but I'm listening to the experts and they're telling me to go to the lower amount.
Okay, all right, thanks.
And they're chuckling when you said overfunded on PERS too. So, go ahead, Mark. We'll finish up.
I'm okay with the lower funded rate. I mean, and I think that the last time we met, I talked about how, I like the idea of kind of the sort of a flat line, just because it seemed to be easier from a budgeting perspective, but you've still got 10 years worth of budgeting ease, if you will. I don't think it'd be an option for option 3 if it weren't doable by the staff and all our advisors. So I'm going to stick with 3 for now, and turn it back over to you, Mayor.
So we're 2-2. Before we let Sridhar break the tie, why don't we do a public comment? See if anybody wants to speak to it. We'll really put the pressure on him. It's okay? All right, we will open the public comment. If you wish to speak under public comment on this item, please raise your hand or dial *9 on your telephone. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and a clock will be running on the Zoom screen. And I'm stalling to see if there's any hands coming up. Public comment going once, twice. Close the public comment. Okay, Sridhar, break the tie.
I was also going to say, sorry, Sridhar, to interrupt, would Stephen, Dan, Brian, or Russ would want to add on to anything that Kelly mentioned? Because he, just for us to get a complete picture of this. Sorry, did not mean to interrupt.
I'm betting they've been through this before.
A bunch of times, yes.
Count to 3. Go ahead, guys.
So count Hilltop among those who are in favor of the 95% funded level. We've gone through careful analysis on a whole batch of different cities, different circumstances, and your chance of going overfunded and in hindsight saying, gee, we wish we had issued smaller bonds, is materially less at 95% than it is at 98%. The people who are funding to 100% now, tend to have a very particular thought process. It's that borrowing is cheap. And they say one way or another, in the long run, Calpers will do something like go to an even lower discount rate that would slurp up excess money. That we hear that time and again among people who go to 100% funded. So those are my comments.
Okay. Sridhar.
Dan or Russ or Stephen?
Dan. Oh, Dan took, hey, he unmuted. It's his problem now.
Yeah, I agree. Taking a smaller bite at the apple is prudent step. I think a lot of cities that went to 100 were cities that depended on POB issuance as a Hail Mary. I think San Ramon is in a very different position. You've taken a very deliberate approach in analyzing the risks. I start getting nervous at 90, even at 95% and 98%. I think there's a much greater chance of potential of being overfunded. Once the bond structure is in place, it's non-changeable for 10 years. With the remnant UAL, or if the new UAL, you have ample time to make additional bites at the apple to either reshape that payment structure on the UAL or to make adjustments. But it doesn't necessarily, and different than refinancing your house. This is an ongoing annual management of an operating liability. So there will be new layers and bases to contend with because the actuarials will tell you they can make their best assumptions, but we're not going to be exactly right on. So we'll be back next year to continue to look at what's happened and what sort of adjustments that we can make. But once you issue bonds, that's a little, you're kind of stuck with that for 10 years. Okay. So taking a smaller bite at the apple is in the camp that I would be in as well.
Thank you. No more delaying. Sridhar.
So, sorry, after listening to all this, I have one question to Kelly. So when we are saying 95% funded, right, that's the option we want to go. But then we have 5.2 million in section 115 trust. That's bringing 97%. So is it make sense, like if we really want to go with 95%, is it make sense that we should go with 93%? That way we will be with our 115 trust fund, we'll be at 95%, right?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. All of our assumptions in the numbers that we have presented are at the 6.5% discount rate. And as we mentioned earlier, in the first meeting, we did present at 92% funded ratio. So if we did say a 93% funded ratio, and we still had that section, we still do and will have that section 115 money in our back pocket, then that would still put us somewhere around a 96% funded ratio. So I would say you're correct with that.
Okay, so
the difference between that 95 and 98 was more than 5 million.
Yeah, it's 5.2 million.
No, the difference when you looked at funding 95 or 98, if you have it and throw it back up.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference between, like, I forget what it's 31 or something else. But you're still stalling, Sridhar. It's down to the
No. So I want to clarify that, because if we are targeting 95%, that means but I got an answer from Kelly that we have all these assumptions, like, or we included this section 5115 trust and to reach to 97%. So right now, I think based on this, I feel like we are trying to reach to the target of 97% because of $5.2 million that we have in our 115 trust.
Right. And so just to be clear, that section 115 money would not come into play unless we chose to do so. So when we talk about it, we're just kind of giving an equivalency. If we took that money and dumped it in, it's kind of the equivalent of being at a 97% funded ratio, 96% funded ratio. But the bonds that we would issue would only be at whatever ratio we put out there. So, which currently, we've been talking about a 95% funded ratio. I hear you talking about a 93% funded ratio. So the actual bond issuance would be smaller. And again, if you just consider the 115 money with it, then it's kind of the equivalent of having a higher funded ratio.
But before we go on, Sridhar, I'd like to point out something. The 115 trust can be used to make our normal payments. So it's not like it's stranded if we're 97% or 95% funded and Calpers has a really good year and we get down there and you go, now what do we do with the 5.2 million in the 115 trust? It can be used to make the normal payments. The only stipulation is it has to be used for pensions. Is that right, Kelly?
Correct.
So don't worry so much about the 115 trust. It's interesting to note, but it's not. I wouldn't use the 115 trust as a deciding factor in this because our normal payments can suck up the $5.2 million in just a few years.
Oh yeah, that makes huge difference. Yeah, because if we can do normal payments, of course, we are not just like 5.2 is not just sitting there, right? Oh, thanks.
It's not just sitting there, and you can use it for if we have, we want to put some of our general fund into the infrastructure maintenance fund, and we'll substitute what we were going to do in the infrastructure maintenance fund of $1 million. We'll say, well, we're going to pull $1 million out of the 115 to backfill the general fund money that was going to go into the IMF. So there's flexibility there because we can use it to make our normal payments.
Yeah, that makes huge difference. Thanks for that info. I appreciate that. So now it makes easy for me. And also I like the spread difference, the wide spread difference of 4%. That's make me think that right way of going is definitely going with the pension obligation bond. And 95% is what I think is the right number for us. And also I would go, as I already mentioned, that I would go with number 3. One of the key reason is that because of this uncertain situation which we are facing right now, we want to make sure we ride through that for a few years, and then we can stabilize and continue to pay the standard payments. So that's the one reason, including all other reasons that mentioned by my fellow council members. So that's my take. Thank you.
Well, as I said all along, it's option 3. Sabina, are you good with the wavering that I just did? Go with option 3 and let Kelly go home if he's not home already. They'll both work. I like one because of that. I like that $2 million cost, and I saw inflation as a break there. I'm probably overthinking it. Probably said number 3 last time with you, Scott. So is there another thing that we can think of before we turn it over to option 3? Or Sabina, you want to add something?
No, I think last time I was leaning towards option 3 as well, but Listening to the experts, I am leaning towards option one, just because I think they've probably been doing this way longer than I have, and I tend to trust the analysts and the experts and the projections they've talked about. So that's my big reason for honestly going with option one, because
And it was mine,
makes sense.
but I can count to 3.
Yeah.
And you saw me cave to 4 as fast as anything that was out there. What are we asking for now? Scott, you've got another hand up?
No, I was just going to make a motion that we direct the city manager and his staff to proceed with pension obligation bonds and adopt option 3 based on the presentation provided this evening.
Okay, so that's a move for 2021-124.
I'm trying to find it.
Makes
Yeah,
sense.
staff report.
Okay,
I'll
do I have a
second it.
second?
I second it.
I think Mark beat you. Okay, we have a motion Perkins, second Armstrong. Further discussion. I would just say that Sabina and I are right, but I'm going to vote for that. There's no, I mean, we're trying to guess what really is going to happen in the future, whether one's good, one's bad. And to be honest with you, staff's going to make this work almost no matter what we do. So, I mean, we're spoiled. I'll leave it at that. Okay, I'm looking for her picture. There she is. Christina, would you do the roll call vote?
Yes. Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Rose,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
No.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hudson.
Yes.
Thank you. That was a 4-1 vote.
4-1.5. Okay. All right. Thanks, Kelly.
Did you just count me as a half? Wait a second. Did you just count me as a half?
No, I just added wrong.
Take it back.
I'm still on the plane, Sabina. I really think that enough thought has gone into this. I probably could have left you two to decide which way to go on it. I don't think there was a wrong way as long as we're at 95. Anything happens between now and then, like you said, you're going to be reporting back to us. I just have to laugh more. It's almost an oxymoron. Calpers is going to be overfunded. That will, but hey, that was my laugh of the night. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming out. I hope we were entertaining. Let's move on to new business. We got 10.1, consider Aspenwood Venture, LP Affordable Housing Trust Fund proposal. Debbie Chamberlain has the staff report.
Good evening. Let me give me a moment. I share my screen.
Okay.
If I can do that. Always takes a minute to click over. There we go.
And I'll give you a heads up, Christina. I think Jeff wants to get in. He'll be the next speaker after Debbie.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, we have 3 folks to promote, and Christine has been provided the list.
Okay.
So good evening. I'm here tonight to present the Aspenwood Ventures Affordable Housing Trust Fund proposal. So I'll give a little bit of background and history as how we got to where we are today. Back in September of 2017, the Planning Commission approved a 95-unit senior housing project that included 13 low and very low income units. This property was purchased from the redevelopment agency after the dissolution of redevelopment. On November 14th of 2017, after a call for review, the council approved the project. Currently, building permits and site development permits are ready to issue. However, due to COVID-19 and escalating construction costs, the project has not proceeded yet. So tonight we're discussing a funding opportunity that will assist in getting the project constructed. As part of that funding opportunity, the project would convert from an approved 95-unit project with the 13 affordables I mentioned to a 122-unit all-affordable project. The applicant is seeking financing through the tax-exempt bonds that are issued by the California Debt Allocation Committee. They did apply through this process. There are 3 rounds so far. They did apply in round 2. And as part of the round 2 application, we went to the Finance Committee, and where they authorized the city manager to provide a letter of support of $4.5 million to help getting the project constructed and hopefully securing funding in round 2. Unfortunately, at round 2, they were not successful in securing funding. So based on what they learned from round 2, the applicant has gone back and has retooled their proposal for round 3 and their goal was really trying to lower the per unit cost to construct a unit. So at this point, from the retooling of their application for round 3, they appear well positioned to see funding. But at this point, they've increased their request for a commitment to $10.5 million from the city. In return for that, we would receive 122 all affordable studio and 1-bedroom units plus 1 manager unit, all below the 60% AMI, or area median income, with a 55-year affordability term. So on the chart here, you'll see that 26 of the units are at 50% below AMI, and 96 are at 60% or below AMI. And just as a reminder, we shared the slide with you at our joint workshop last week. When we're talking about below 60% AMI, these are the income levels that we will be serving. So a studio and a 1-bedroom, these are probably 1 or 2 person units. So you're looking really at someone who's making below $60,000 a year for a 2-bedroom household. And as we've been talking about, as you know, our regional housing needs allocation is extremely high going into this next cycle, and we're looking for opportunities to meet our RHNA allocations, but also take care of our residents in San Ramon and ensure they can live and work in their community and continue to remain with their families. I just want to note that the building permits for this project, if the commitment from the city goes forward and it does secure funding, would be issued in May of next year, which means those units would count towards our current RHNA allocation and not our future cycle 6 that we're discussing with you right now. And that really isn't a material, it's just to give you an understanding of where those units would fall when we're doing our annual housing report. So you would see them in the current cycle and not planning for our future cycle, but they do help in satisfying our obligation. So to the meat of the proposal, not as detailed as Kelly's was tonight, but Aspenwood is requesting a commitment of $10.5 million from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund under the following terms. It's a 2-loan presentation, $7 million in acquisition from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund at a 0.75 interest rate for 30 years, an additional commitment of $3.5 million of funds, which includes fees and waiver at the same interest rate. So and the loan would be structured with 30-year $6 million at a deferred simple interest rate and a 30-year at 4.5. And the 30-year at 4.5, they're requesting it be forgiven at loan term at interest rate 0.75, as I mentioned. And the 4.95 would be forgiven, allowing the city to recapture $6 million. And as of note, included in this $10.5 million request is a deferral of the city's $1.725 million in impact fees, and those would be paid out, I believe, in 2024 following project completion. So just to be clear that we would be deferring 1.725, and the trust fund would be paying those fees to the CIP project to construct those improvements down the road, but the commitment of 10.5 does include that 1.725. And so, as you've read in the staff report, as I've mentioned, there will be a subsequent approval process required by the city to convert the 95 units to the 122 all affordable, plus the 1 manager unit. So the proposal would be to convert the 2-bedroom units in the current approved plan, and it would be to 81 1-bedroom and 42 studio units. They would retain the 90 parking spaces. There are no changes to the building footprint or the exterior. Based on the all affordable project, they do qualify for an 80% density bonus, which gets them to the 122 units. At that point, they can ask for 4 concessions, unlimited waivers. And under density bonus law, we cannot require more than 103 parking spaces, including guests and handicap. Just to note, the previous approval did have a concession for parking, and which was granted. And so I would suspect they will follow that same path. Also required by density bonus law, note we cannot require a parking study. The burden to demonstrate that the reduced parking does not result in identifiable or actual cost reduction is the burden of the city or a health and safety problem. So the city would be the one to demonstrate that the reduced parking would not meet the needs of the development. And that's a very high bar for us to attain. So as part of our process, we did meet with the Finance Committee on October 18th, and they had 4 topics that they primarily discussed. One was confidence in securing the tax exempt bonds, and I'll talk about that briefly, but the applicant can go into more details. Collateral for the loan that the city would be giving, loan payments if RIA 5 fees are not received, and the impact of the future funding request. So in speaking with the applicant, they feel that based on the ranking that they've received, that the project is competing with one additional project. As I mentioned, the cost per unit has become extremely competitive, down from that around over $200,000 to about $155,000 to $160,000 per unit. The staff from CDLAC we're expecting a recommendation between now and early November, with the decision in December. And regarding the collateral for the loan, typically, as the applicants spoke with the Finance Committee, vacant units are the primary reason for loan default, meaning that rent's not being paid. And typically that is due to a bad operator. And so at that point in time, the debt holder and the investor would step in and remove that operator and put an operator in place that would make the project successful and to continue making those payments. So the big question, and we'll have more discussion about this a few more slides into my presentation, is a lot of this proposal is really predicated on the city receiving the $9 million from the RIA Preserve Neighborhood 5. If you recall, there's a development agreement from the initiative that requires the payment at $55,555 per unit at the close of escrow. And so based on what you see in the staff report, and I'll show you in a few minutes, it is structured that the fund would not go negative. However, if those fees are not received, the city is still obligated to pay the loan, which could impact the general fund, because if the money is not in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, then the general fund would need to cover that loan payment. And the other question from the committee was, how would this affect future funding request? Well, the balance of the fund would be used to assist the Aspenwood project. So funding a project this magnitude would be very difficult in the future. It would take us many years to accrue this much the revenue we will be receiving. When you look at our 5-year projections that we do annually, there's about $1.3 million that we do anticipate. It's from commercial projects that have been approved. And then the city village single family residential in lieu fee payment that you discussed as part of the North Camino Ramon specific plan tonight. There is no guarantee these fees will come in. They are dependent on market conditions.
Before you go to the next slide.
Yes.
So the city village is not entitled yet, but it would, should it be entitled, it will be paying in lieu fees.
Correct.
The Deerwood project, not entitled yet. Would it be paying some in lieu fees?
Are you referring to the Upper Cortese project?
Yes.
That is entitled, they are providing units.
So there be no in lieu fees coming from them? They meet their entire 25%?
Yes, though they're 15%, because it's 15% must build for single family attached units.
Okay, it's 15% must build. I thought there was a 10% in lieu piece.
No, that only applied to the old Crow Canyon specific plan.
Okay. Golden Skate, same thing?
That proposal right now is before the Planning Commission, and they're proposing to meet their affordable housing obligation through the use of accessory dwelling units.
Okay, and so there would be no
no in that project either.
And the Rome project at the Outpost?
They have a, it is approved. There's a small commercial component to it. They have commitment to a 15% build and then a fee payout also.
Okay, so should they actually start building, they'll owe some in lieu fees as well. There any other construction projects, you say there's some commercial projects,
Mhm.
that's in the 1.35. And that is not in your finance thing on page 389, with the yellow bars, that 1.35 million is not in there.
No, we came forward with a very conservative estimate.
Right,
because
okay.
The FRIAC project is under construction now. So there's
Yes.
physical development happening, and we wanted to present to the council, and I'll get to that in a few minutes, a very conservative approach.
Okay, but
Hang on a minute, Sridhar, I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
so the presentation of the cash flow does not include the 1.35 million.
That is correct. That's what we presented to the finance committee also.
Okay, Sridhar, did you want to speak now?
Yeah, on this slide, yes. I wanted to just check on this Faria Preserve in lieu fee for $9 million that mentioned. Like, do we have any estimated time that we think that we will be receiving it? Or so just wanted to make sure I understand that.
We do, and I can get to that in my presentation in a minute, if that's okay.
Yes, perfect. Yeah, I just
continue, Debbie.
Okay, thank you. So, getting to the meat of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So currently we have a balance of $4.2 million. We anticipate that will end the fiscal year with about 4.5, which will include the proceeds from the sale of the Park Central Townhome. And that also includes the budgeted personnel cost for this year. As we were just noting, we are anticipating the $9 million and then with fee payment from the Free Neighborhood 5, which is collected at close of escrow. We anticipate the first payment beginning in June about 2022, and the last payment to be received in about December of 2025. And also, as we just discussed, there's an anticipated 1.3 million from commercial projects in the city center, city village, single family residential, but we don't really have a time frame for commitment to those. City village, if they are approved next week, we could see them probably 2024 through about 2029, 2030 on a construction timeframe, but it's really all going to be market driven at that point in time.
I have one question regarding previous.
Go ahead.
So I see that by 2025, we will be getting, will clearly understand the in lieu fee, whether we receive or not from Faria Preserve, right? So what is the time frame that we are looking at this project when we are planning to get this project to be started?
Are you referring to the Aspen Wood project or
Yes,
the
one which we are looking at, Aspen Wood project that we need to.
I would say let Debbie finish this because we've seen some of this presentation. I think she'll get to all of it.
Okay, because
They have to
at
be
one
approved
point, as there is a risk, right, that she mentioned. That's why I wanted to make sure I understand that. Okay, yeah, continue, Debbie.
So when we work through the payment structure with the Aspen Wood folks, our goal of the negotiating team was really to show that the fund balance would not go negative at any time when a payment was due. And so what we took was the projected year-end balance, and I got it, there we go, of 4.5 million. So we're starting with, this would be next year's fiscal year-end balance. And then we factored in the first payment from Aspen Wood, which would be $400,000, $4 million, I'm sorry, leaving a fund balance of $500,000. And then the FRIA payment of and then we see the first FRIA payment about $777,000, but those payments are really, they come in on a per unit basis. And so what I did for the purpose of this table was really just to show a lump sum each year that we would be receiving. And so as you see that as the FRIA payment works through and the Aspen Wood payments are made, so we see at the end of 2023 anticipating about 4.1 million with a fund expenditure about 4.7. So we still are keeping positive even when we get to the lowest point of about the $131,000. And we receive another FRIA payment at the end of 2024. And at that point in time, we're able to pay our impact fees back to the city's park fund primarily the park fund, which is impacted, and to maintain a positive balance throughout the payment structure. What I just actually saw a comment, a note. I actually see 6/30/2022. This should be 4.3 because this would fall after this. So we would still have a positive fund balance, but this fund projection should be 4.3, not the 4.5. But we still have a positive fund balance throughout the proposal at this point in time. Does that answer your question, Councilmember Barros?
Yeah, so yes, so 3/22/2022 is when we are committing for Aspenwood payment.
Yes, the first payment would be due on 3/22.
Perfect. So sounds good. And then we'll be looking forward for 2025 until the Feria Preserve complete their payments. Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, screen here. So what we want to talk about is, hold on, excuse me, my screen. One thing we want to focus on the council tonight is the risk to be weighed when looking at this proposal. So as we showed that we can show a fund balance that maintains a positive cash flow throughout the process. But the question to be is if for some reason those funds don't come in, the risk to be weighed to the general fund. So what is the acceptable risk to the general fund? The city is obligated to make the loan payments no matter what. If we enter into this loan agreement, we need to make the payments. And that potentially would come from the general fund. Those loans are not, in lieu fees are not received. There's also the deferral of the 1.725 development impact fees. And as I mentioned, that's primary and impact to the park fund, which would delay those park improvements that have been anticipated. It would limit the funds for future housing opportunities. And as we're seeing with our RENA allocation and the states pushing for affordable housing production, you'll see more housing production and not as many in lieu fee payments. In lieu fees would be really focused on commercial construction, since we're looking for denser housing, which would probably limit the amount of single family residential construction we would be having. I think what we will be seeing is what you saw in the Summerhill Village, City Village project, where they're the detached 3-story row house on a very small lot would be the single family construction that we'll be seeing, but that is a fee, that would be a fee payment. The attached is typically a production is what we're looking for to get, and which get units produced rather than the fee out, because we need to meet a RENA allocation. So it's a balance between project units constructed and fee outs for the single family.
Before you go on to that, go back a slide. No, there. No, let's see. In between. There we go. Bullet number 3. The Feria neighborhood number 5, in lieu fees not received. Is that, I really don't find that the words not received is not quite accurate. It's not received on the time frame that you've projected, because whenever they pull a permit, they're making a payment. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, so not received, that construction could be deferred, so the payments could come later. But if they come later and there's not enough to make the payment, if the fund's negative, then the general fund will step in.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that it's more of a timing issue than are they going to make their payments.
Correct.
We have no reason at this time to believe that neighborhood number 5 would be left incomplete.
Correct.
Okay.
That, yeah, with breaking ground, the likelihood of construction continuing is very high. I cannot predict the future economics.
No, I understand, but based on what we know of the builder and their plans, our expectation is they will continue to build so long as economic conditions permit. But at no point do we anticipate that they're going to just abandon the project.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Wait,
Question on-
before anybody else jumps in, how many more slides do you have, Debbie?
One or two, I believe.
Sabina, do you want it now or wait?
Yeah, I just need a quick clarification.
Go ahead.
Is it at when they pull permit or when it goes into escrow is when we receive the money?
When the house closes escrow. So it's not, typically, it could be at final map or at billing permit stage. So this is, the close of escrow is the latest step that a payment can be made to the city. And so it's paid out of the escrow from the escrow company.
Okay. Who is next? Mark?
Oh, that was my
Go.
question too.
Okay, Scott, you still up? There you, okay.
So with
Go ahead.
So with that, receive the presentation, discuss, deliberate, and if appropriate, adopt the resolution supporting the Aspen Wood application with a commitment of $10.5 million to the city.
Okay, do you want to hear from the our applicant before you go ahead, Sabina?
No, let's hear from Robert first and then I can make a.
Well, is Jeff here? No, go ahead, Robert.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. I want to begin by thanking staff for an incredible report that actually exceeded our expectations. And a special thank you to Debbie Chamberlain, because she actually grasps this concept very early on in the process. So this evening, I'm joined here with my partner, Jeff Woods, and Sean Carpenter of the Standard Companies, who will be representing us and taking on the technical questions. And I really like to thank the council for allowing Jeff and I to present a very unique and one-of-a-kind project to the council this evening. As for some background, Jeff and I purchased the property from the city in 2017, and we entitled it to build 95 units, of which 14 units would have been affordable. We would have been able to build that project. It probably would have penciled out. And we probably would have been able to do that next year. Jeff and I have built a number of projects throughout the Bay Area, and we tried to figure out how we were going to increase the affordable units in this project. And then we just finally realized we couldn't do any more than the 14 affordable units. It just wasn't possible for a lot of different reasons. And then we had a chance meeting with Sean Carpenter of Standard Companies. And we learned through Sean, there's a process mainly through tax exempt bonds that would allow us to offer the city and build very quickly, by the way, because by the time we close escrow, we have to build this project within, I believe it's 180 days. And all the units would be affordable. I mean, you just don't hear these kind of numbers on any project. 13 or the 30% AMI, which I came up with $27,000 to $30,000 a year income, 13 or 50%, which is about 42,000. And then 96 of the units is at 60% AMI, which is about 51 to 55,000, allowing our residents making, let's say, $27,000 to $50,000 a year to live in the city of San Ramon. And it's still a deed restricted senior project. I have a project in Danville that's affordable, and I have a number of units that make between 14,000 and 18,000, and they can live in downtown Danville. It's almost unheard of in the Bay Area because these are just considered affluent areas, and they're just aren't affordable housing projects that are similar to this. And that's why this project is so unique and 100% affordable, deed restricted for 55 years. For low-income seniors. And once again, I got to emphasize this. There's just not another project in the Bay Area that's similar to this. And, it still amazes me that Jeff and I would be a part of something this special. And what you have in front of you this evening is a true example of a public-private partnership. And as all of us know, if any one project in either of our cities had 3 very low units, we'd be thrilled to have those 3 very low units. And what we have here is 123 extremely low, very low, and low units. And I want you to know that this is, as you know, we all know this, those are the hardest numbers to achieve. And that's what we're offering with Aspen Woods this evening. And we'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Jeff and I will take care of some of the construction questions, and Sean would take care of some of the technical questions of the affordability component and bond.
Okay, Sabina and then Mark. By the way, if anybody's watching it doesn't know it, we all know each other. Robert Story is a Danville council member. But go ahead, Sabina.
Yeah. First, thank you, Robert, for sharing that. And I think we're all very grateful that we have something in front of us, in front of the council, to consider 100% affordable. And thank you, Debbie. You really captured the essence of our finance committee discussion well. And one of the reasons we, wanted to forward it to the entire council, because we are, like you saw the numbers, we are putting a little bit of a risk. Because again, it's forecasting. We just went through a forecasting exercise in our last presentation. So we just wanted the entire council to be cognizant, aware of that, how much we have right now in the fund. And like I said, Debbie captured pretty much everything that went into discussion. And as we consider this, we just want to make sure that we're weighing in all the risks and the forecasts and options. And what, how much risk are we ready to take on in case we, another 2008 happens, or the market changes, or projections change, or things don't happen. So I think Debbie did a good job, so I don't need to say a lot more, but just wanted to make sure, the finance committee had an extensive discussion. We forwarded it to council so that we can collectively come up with the best decision.
Okay, Mark, then Sridhar.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Debbie, for the presentation, and Robert for your comments there. I have to ask, but this project was approved back in 2017 for 95 units. And so I didn't quite catch, why wasn't it built? Why, did you seek funding at that time? Who'd you seek it from, and what was the outcome of seeking funding? I mean, why wasn't the project built at that time?
Yeah, we actually, Jeff can jump in on this as well. We actually were approved for a $27 million loan on this project, or $27 million funding. We thought it could be increased to about 32 million. And then the construction market just changed dramatically on us. COVID hit. And, between the resources not being available and the supply line not being, as user-friendly as it was 2 years ago, we sort of worked through the concept of, increasing the affordability. And, that took us, 2 or 3 months to actually sort of delve into it a little bit to figure out how we could increase affordable. Look, we both sit at the dais trying to do affordable housing. And Jeff, I found Jeff's my partner, and he was certainly willing to look at increasing, the affordability component. And Mark, as you know, there's not a builder in this world that wants to take on, inclusionary housing or do the affordability component, because for-profit builders just don't love the affordability component, until we met with Sean. And then we looked at this as being, a pretty special project where we could come to you guys and say, hey, we got 100% affordable. So that's taken us to today. And as you know, the entitlement process is not a quick process. It's taken, us, since 2017 to get to this point here where we could propose, 123 units of affordability.
Jeff,
okay.
You have additional answer? Wait, Jeff wanted to chime in for you too, I think, Mark.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I'm fine. That's
okay.
Robert.
I thought he still had more to add to your first question. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, well, then maybe back to Debbie. We, with our affordable housing fund, we used it for Park Central, and that was deed restricted, but in perpetuity. Why only 55 years for the Aspen Wood project? Obviously, it's a good deal for Aspen Woods, I think, in a deep future, but why not that same perpetuity?
Typically the city asks for 55 years, and that's what's required from the Housing Community Development Department of the state to count the units for the term, to count towards our RENA allocation. And so that's something the council could consider as part of the package, that the units could be restricted longer as something that the city receives. But that may be a question for Sean to answer as part of the the application to the state for the tax exempt bonds, but we were just mirroring what the state's affordability requirements are as we move forward with the project or the proposal.
Okay. I also had a question on the loan forgiveness, this $4.5 million. Are there any conditions for the forgiveness of that 4.5 million, or is it just a granted?
It would just be a granted, basically. So we will be returned as I understand the proposal that they've asked of the city, we would be receiving $6 million back at 30 years with the deferred interest. And then the 4.5 would be forgiven in 30 years.
And that's 30 years, and that's with a completed project, and units are built out and occupied and everything else.
Correct.
John, you want to add more to that? I saw your hand go up.
Let's see. Yes, thank you, Mayor Hudson, and to the councilors. I just wanted to add a few things here on the use agreement. Actually, we didn't ask for the 55 years. That was what was already existing in the existing entitlement. So we just went with it. Honestly, and I was just trying to look here at my in my documents, but I can't find it that quickly. I believe that you are correct that it's an in perpetuity requirement under the low-income housing tax credits, or in perpetuity in the tax credit world is 99 years. So I don't think we would object to any additional. I mean, we're affordable housing developers, so we wouldn't oppose any extension of the affordable use restrictions, which would already be put on it when we closed on the tax exempt bonds and on the low income tax credits. Typically, tax credits run for a 15-year period, and then you have an additional 40-year use restriction added to that. So that's where the 55 years comes from. On the second question on the 4.5 million, the reason why that's a forgiven is under the CIDLAC requirements, and as Debbie kind of outlined to you, the tiebreaker score that we had to come back in. The 4.5 million gets us the highest in number of points, what they call leverage points, local match. So when the local match is, and that was the lowest number. So that 4.5 million is the lowest local match, and that generally has to be, those are liquid funds. What I did was structured it as a 30-year note that would be forgiven in 30 years, in compliance and at our request. That would be up to the city, and it would be in your loan documents, and the balance would be paid off at a capital event or in that 30th year.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Sean. I had a question on the fee waivers and the deferrals for East Bay Mud, DSRSD, the school district. What if you don't get those fee waivers or deferrals? What happens to this project? I'm going to assume you will, but what happens if you don't?
Well, Jeff, do you want me to take a stab at this?
Yeah, go ahead.
So when we built an affordable project in Danville, I was able to go to East Bay Mudmark, and my case was, look, we have a low-income senior housing project that's affordable in Danville that is at 17 years ago, it was really unheard of to build that project. East Bay Mud, my theory is, look, I got single individual people living in units, mostly women, that are not using the water. It's not a family of four and two dogs. It's one person living in the unit. The East Bay Mud, led by John Coleman, said, hey, look, we agree with that. And they changed all their requirements and their policy for that low income housing. So I don't know if there's much more we could do with East Bay Mud. Sanitary district, Mark, possible. We all sit at the dais and we say, we need affordable housing. Where we need to be working on are the utility companies that are not making these projects affordable. So, we're builders, so naturally we're optimistic that we can go to each one of these utilities and entities and use the same argument. So, we wanted to get past this hurdle first, and then we would take on each of the utilities. Whether we get a deduct, which would certainly be reimbursed to the city, or not, the projects would still move forward.
And you're reasonably confident you're going to get all those waivers and deferrals.
Yeah, actually, let me jump. I think his question is that in the $1.7 million, those don't include those fees. We're paying those. Those are just your fees, the city of San Ramon's fees.
Oh, yeah, I apologize. Those, though the pass-through fees are the ones we're going after. The city fees, you guys are in control of those. Pass-through, we're not.
Well, I might be confused, and maybe Debbie, you can step in on that, because I'm not sure which. I kind of took it as those are fees or from those agencies, but perhaps they are city fees.
In your packet, yes, they are. So they are the city development impact fees. They're primarily the park fund. They are beautification funds. There is no child care fund. I'm trying to find as part of your packet. But they are not the connection fees. And so we have asked them, though, to work with those outside agencies to obtain deferrals or waivers to help maybe reduce part of our commitment on this end too.
Okay. All right. So enough on that. Last question. I swear. And that has to do with the concessions or the incentives, that 80% density bonus that's in the packet. And I understand there's going to be a subsequent approval process, and that's probably where all that will get worked out. But Debbie, do you have any feel for what we're going to see in terms of concessions or incentives or waivers?
I do not. The original project had, I believe, one or two. One was for floor area ratio and then parking. So I would assume they're going to proceed with those same two to move the project forward. But with the footprint not changing, I wouldn't expect anything radically different than what we've already have approved previously. It's just primarily interior changes to the building.
Okay, thanks, Debbie, and thanks, Robert, Sean, and Jeff.
And Mark, just to follow up on the parking component, we found that when we do low incomes, especially the senior housing project, that the parking demand usually is between 0.55 and 0.75. Occasionally, it'll touch 1. And if you look at some of the bridge housing projects, the ECHO projects, when they do their parking studies, they're finding that most seniors at a certain point in life, when you've sold your home and you move to an affordable housing project, most of the time you don't bring a car with you, because a lot of these are close to transit, and frankly, a lot of seniors just aren't getting out on their own as much.
Okay, thank you.
We have a pretty good senior transit down there. Sridhar and then Scott, then Sabina can wrap us up.
Thank you, Debbie, for great presentation. Thanks, Robert, Jeff, and Sean for chiming in and giving the background about this whole project. I really appreciate it. And I do agree that we need senior affordable housing, and appreciate that it is 100%. That makes it much better. So thanks for that. Debbie, I have one question from city perspective though. So it's not like I don't want to have affordable housing, but the question is from our city perspective, is there any reason why we need to do this? What are the pros and cons that we need to do this by 2022 rather than waiting for getting our money from FERIA and then approve this one? Is there any pros and cons with that?
Well, for the applicant is in this current round 3 of this tax exempt bond financing process. And so part of the requirement is that they, the $4 million is provided to them for them to proceed with construction and to move forward with the tax credit allocation. For us to wait would mean this project would not go forward, but that's, as discussed, in depth in the staff report, that's the risk the city council needs to weigh. Are you comfortable moving forward based on the projections of the Park Central sale coming in, which is this current fiscal year's projections at the end of this fiscal year? That unit is being renovated, so it should be on the market in the near future. And are you comfortable with with the FRIA funds coming in as anticipated, and the absorption schedule that the projections, fund projection is based on, those numbers were given to me by Toll Brothers, who's the developer of the project. So we tried to get the most reliable data we could, but you have that Park Central unit to be sold, and then you have the 9 million to come in, to maintain and to keep your fund balance positive, right? So it's a risk assessment. Is that, how risk adverse are you to going forward?
Oh, okay. Thanks, Debbie.
Okay, Scott, then Sabina.
Debbie, what is the name of the housing project that was up by, we called it Church on the Hill at one time, and now it's called Brave? What is that unit, that project called?
Oh, Valley
Vista.
Vista Housing.
What's that?
Valley Vista Senior Housing.
Valley Vista. And what percentage of affordable units is that?
I believe that's an all affordable project that was done through the redevelopment agency many years ago.
Right. And about how many units was that?
102.
Okay. So it's roughly the same size as this project. And are you aware of any long-term vacancies there? Or has it maintained its full rental status, to your knowledge?
Not to my knowledge. I haven't been monitoring the vacancies of that unit, but I would, with the demand for low-income senior housing, it probably is one that has a very high, very low vacancy rate, but I'm not positive what their vacancy rate is right now.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So that gives me an indicator of how successful Aspenwood is likely to be in terms of renting out when they're ready to cut the ribbon and move people in. Second thing, let's see, this is at this $10.5 million, it comes out to $86,000 per unit is our contribution, as opposed to the Park Central, which we were eager to do at $189,000. So at twice the price, we were eager to finance that Park Central in perpetuity, and it's a for sale unit as opposed to a rental unit. So that's not insignificant, by the way. I don't think so. I would like the conditions of approval. Are we going to have new conditions of approval with this project, Debbie?
Yes, they'll need to be updated to reflect the.
Okay. If the developer is amenable, I would like it to have a 99-year affordability covenant. I do want to, I'm the current chairman of the Tri-Valley Transportation Council, and we have Tri-Valley Transportation Development fees that we collect on residential, commercial, retail projects. And I want to point out that TVTC has said we will collect 0 on affordable housing units. So the you will be paying, I believe, only on the one unit that is for the in-house manager. The other 122 units would not incur a TVTC fee. So there's that. I don't know what that fee would have been, but you can calculate it. Calculate the one and multiply that by 123, and that's the piece you're saving on that. So one of the things I think the council needs to consider, and that is something Robert said. It's really hard to get these very low units. To get low and very low units is really hard. And it would be a really awkward conversation with the HCD at the state if they said, what? You guys turned this down? There are cities that are facing sanctions going forward because they're not producing their low-income housing or any housing in some places. And so I believe that it is I think that the folks at Standard Communities and Robert and Jeff have presented us with a opportunity to meet some of our housing needs and serve our community. There is a definite need for seniors, low-income seniors, to have a place to live. And it's going to be baby boomers before very long, right? Right, Dave? You fellow baby
No
boomer.
idea what you're talking about. Is that
I don't
good?
I don't either, Scott.
You know, fortunately, Dave and I and the other boomers that are on this screen aren't going to be looking at low-income housing, but there are plenty of them out there that, for whatever reason through their life, they did not accumulate wealth through real estate or investments or things like that, and they're trying to get by on Social Security, and maybe a small pension or savings. So this is an opportunity where we can serve our community in multiple ways, and I hope the council can support this.
Okay, Sabina.
Yeah, first off, Scott, thank you for that summary. I agree with everything you've said. Just playing the devil's advocate and making sure we're fully aware, eyes wide open as we're going into this. And that's our risk to take tonight. One, we have to make this decision tonight because Standard Communication needs this to submit their application for a commitment to come from us. What we are, technically, what we are putting at risk is that right now we have 4.5 million, which actually we'd already committed. We anticipate up to 13 million from various sources. My understanding is, Debbie, correct me if I'm wrong. And so as we're committing 10.5 million to this project, we should be aware that if another project comes to in front of the council, we will not be able to help anybody else out. That should be in front of us. The fact that we are counting on the money to come later on, again, projections that we're going to get these funds later on. We just have to take that risk in case, hopefully that won't be the case, but in case it doesn't, we're going to have to pull money out of our general fund to make sure that we meet our obligations. And that risk to the general fund is what we need to consider. And then the third one is our park fees, right? We're willing to give those up for right now and defer some of those park improvements. So, whatever the council decides to go with, I'm, happy to go with either decision, but just wanted to make sure that we go with this with all these scenarios in place so that 4 years later, if we're answerable to our residents, we can back it up by, we made this decision thoughtfully.
Okay. Very good. Before we open up the public comment or open it up to public comment, I had a couple of questions that I heard earlier, and I just wanted to wait. Our fifth cycle total housing is 1412, or do you know what it is offhand?
1417.
1417, and our very low in the next cycle is 1497, and maybe climbing. As long as I'll stay away from that. The cycle or the cells for very low and low, are we going to make these numbers needed in the fifth cycle with this project?
They will be added to the fifth cycle. I do not believe we will meet our low and our very low requirement. I'm most positive we won't.
Okay.
But we have not done any low or very low that I can, or Doherty Valley's had a few low and very low, but this would help, get us closer, but meet the allocation.
Debbie, let me help you. What I'm worried about is if we went over and don't get to count them towards something else, which is something I didn't realize until I got into this appeal. It just makes the next cycle look totally ridiculous. The only people that I can think of that might be in worse shape are in one of the boxes that we're looking at here tonight. But that's, we're all in that boat, so I don't even see humor in that. The other thing that Veronica Tam brought up that we haven't been paying much attention to, a lot of these fifth cycle projects could end up built by right. the way this state's going. It's not, so I'm very happy to join into a partnership that might be a template for where we're going to need even more in the next cycle. I mean, our total number is 1417 for 8 years. And in the next 8 years after this project, we got to come up with 1497 very low. I think that might be a tough task. So yeah, granted, the money may not, we don't know where it is right now to go after those future projects, but I'll take the one we've got right now and make my argument with HCD and ABAG and whoever else on what we're producing from 2015 forward, especially when I'm coming up against some other people that are not in Contra Costa County. I think the question that Scott was pointing towards is, if we don't do this now, when are we gonna do it? How are we ever gonna do it? I mean, these things aren't just jumping out at us, and it isn't easy to get it approved. I think that's where Sean's coming from. If you can do the condition of approval that Scott Perkins has asked for, fine. If it kills the project, I don't think Scott wants to kill the project over 99 or 55 years, but I understand it was in the original and that's where it's coming from. That's fine. I would give staff the latitude. If they could do it, do it. Just makes us look better. But we are not ready to kill on that. I personally, I think it's a good project. And if nobody else wants to speak before we open up public comment, I'll open it up to Sean.
Thank you, Mayor Hudson. I would ask if you're going to change the condition to the in perpetuity 99 years, if you could defer that to the planning council for that process, not this process, because I do have to seek counsel on that. Just to
Sean, let me help you. That's what I was trying to say, and it obviously didn't come out well.
Oh, okay. All right.
No,
thank you.
We're not going to change things tonight. I know where he was going. That's it. But let's do this. Let's open it up to the public. If there anyone wishing to speak to this item, we're talking about 10.1. That's the Aspenwood Ventures Affordable Housing Trust Fund proposal. Do we have any written, Christina? Nobody wrote us today. Boy,
No
we were
written.
really popular. There's one. Joyce Carr wants to speak. Let's bring Joyce Carr in. It's beginning to think it was broken.
Good evening.
Go ahead, Joyce.
I just had couple of questions. My first question is, where is the site for the Aspenwood? Where in San Ramon is it proposed to be built?
Remember the old First Interstate building used to be on the Dublin-San Ramon border? There's a 7-Eleven there. I believe it's 76 gas station.
Okay.
We had that lot cleared. That's where it's going to be.
So the southern end of town then is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And I thought that Scott had a good point when he was just thinking about the other senior housing that we have in the city, and if it's popular or not, or if it's filled, or if they have trouble keeping it filled. I thought that was a good thought, something to investigate, but I don't know if you have to vote tonight, you won't be able to do that. But I do like the location, because I was thinking if seniors do not want to drive cars any longer, or whatever, they need to be close to transportation or to getting to stores and whatever places that they want to go. So that was
the other store, Robert, not you. Joyce, let me help set you in mind. Joyce, Robert and I sit on the County Connection Transit. He actually, I believe we're moving the transit to right in front of this project. He was talking about it. Correct. And we have a Go San Ramon project where seniors can use Uber. That's just on the other side of the freeway.
Perfect.
That even takes you into a city center. And you're going to see a lot more projects where seniors are involved, where County Connection and LAVTA are joining together on ways to make this work. I sit on accessible transportation committee right now, where we're looking at things like one ride, whereas before you might have to stop and change as you went into AC Transit's area and put people on a different vehicle. But that's kind of what we're talking about now and trying to change over. So truly, this is a fortuitous time to be doing senior housing. And I'm sorry I took all your time.
No. I wasn't gonna, I didn't have any other questions. Thank you for answering the questions, and I'm really happy about the location. That was the one thing I was thinking about, that for some reason I did not know where the location was, but that's a great location. So thank you.
It's well overdue to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, this is killing me to say it because Robert and I always jab back and forth, but I have to thank him for this. I think you did a great job, Jeff, putting this together. In any case, public comment. Is anyone else wish to speak to it? Seeing none, we're back to the panelists. We've closed the public hearing. Further discussion before a motion. Mr. Perkins.
I'm just going to make a motion, adopt the resolution 2021-125, supporting Aston Woods California Debt Limit Allocation Committee application with a commitment of 10.5 million.
And I'm looking to
That's
Member
my motion.
Armstrong because he had his hand up. Did you want a second and speak or just speak?
I wanted an opportunity to speak at the appropriate time.
Okay, well, I'll second it. It's now an appropriate time. Go ahead.
Well, I did see Sean raise his hand when I think it was a Valley Vista project question came up a second ago, but I didn't see him chime in with an answer.
Yeah, actually, that would be part of the discussion we do now. I did the same thing to Jerry Engen. I'm trying to stay consistent. We don't jump out there during public comment like I just did, but that's what happens when we get a little later at night. Sean, did you have an answer for Councilmember Armstrong?
It actually came up a couple of times, and thanks. In your packet, and I know there's a ton of stuff in the packet, but there is a market study in there that's up to date that we submitted in September, and it has two vacancy rates in there. The vacancy rate for all units in Contra Costa County and in San Ramon proper, that's at 2.4%. The affordable, any income restricted properties in Contra Costa County and in San Ramon are at 0%. So right now, so there would be immediately, if I open this waiting list up, I would have probably in excess of 100 people applying for this property, and it's not even built yet.
Well, you're going to be built in 180 days. I think I put the word out there.
Yeah, right. Well, what I want to point out is that what I'll say is this is based on those numbers alone. This is not our last project in San Ramon, hopefully, and hopefully we'll be able to do it much more efficiently in the future. But it's been a great opportunity to work with all the staff at the city, and we're really excited about moving forward. And we just hope that SIDLAC will approve the deal.
Well, so do I. That's why anyway, Sridhar, you had your hand up, and
I'd like to make some other comments. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to find a bigger advocate for senior affordable housing than me. I appreciate the fact I sit in on the senior advisory committee meetings, and I recognize they're on a fixed income. There's increased medical costs and everything else. But this item has been a difficult one for me. Our city does need affordable senior housing. We obviously have clear affordable housing allocation goals that we have to meet. This project's going to go a long way to meeting those goals. And frankly, 100% affordable is pretty incredible proposal. So I appreciate the challenges in getting this project financed. It sounds a little complicated, but it looks like it's moving towards going across the finish line. The obvious concern to me is giving public funds to this project, right? So as council members, we obviously have this fiduciary responsibility. We've got to consider all the facts, evaluate what's an acceptable risk, and there's certainly risk for this project. And my biggest concern with that is the exposure to the general fund and the risk to our ability to provide the services at the high level that our residents expect and demand. I'm a little uncomfortable with feeling rushed for a decision, but I appreciate the timelines that everyone is under to make this go forward. I do feel this is a project that's good for the city, and however, given all that, I'm inclined to support moving forward.
Good, thank you, Sridhar. I know you had your hand up. Did you put it down?
No, I definitely want to make a comment here. As I mentioned, it is a great project that 100% senior affordable housing, which based on current situation that going on for the housing for within the Bay Area, it makes sense for me that we need to provide definitely affordable housing for our seniors. And I agree with Council Member Armstrong. I'm also in the same boat, like initially, like getting our general fund into this whole picture where if anticipated money is not in, but sometimes we have to make some risks. So I think it is a good reason and good cause. I think that we are okay to take that risk in this case. So with that idea, I'm ready to take this as yes to move forward for this project.
Okay, Scott, you got a last word before I throw something in?
I just want to thank Jeff and Robert and Sean for bringing this project to us. It's going to help us. It's going to help the community, and I hope it works for you as well. That's important too, because if you get developers that are dissatisfied, then they stop showing up.
Yep.
And so I want it to be successful for you, as well as the tenants, as well as the city. Thank you for bringing it to us.
I would echo that too. I know I joke around with you quite a bit, but I think you did an absolutely phenomenal job, Jeff. No, Robert, really, I just couldn't resist that last minute one, but I think we're looking at something that's going to be a template. And I mean, I've seen that lot for a long time. I drive by it all the time. I know a lot of people are not going to like higher and higher density, but the facts are this is the new redevelopment. That one took us so far, it didn't get enough housing. We're still underbuilt in the Bay Area by 1 million, at least. Not going to win the argument to change that, but I think what you're doing is a big future for cities. Well, we're seeing it just from what happened at Bishop Ranch too. I don't know what else we can do on this and just get out of the way and let you guys do what you do. But I'm really looking forward to this. And if people don't like it, tell them to call me. It was my fault. Go ahead, Sabina.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you're getting all positive comments once we vote, and this project goes forward. Best of luck to you. And hopefully the next time we meet, you will have won that bid, and we'll be supporting you in that project. So thank you for presenting it to us.
What I would add is that I appreciate the council looking outside of the box, because as council members, we are tasked with the responsibility to put affordable housing together. And naturally, the way we used to do business doesn't work anymore. So we're forced to look at these options. And this, in my opinion, is really thinking outside of the box, but it's been proven outside of the area. We just haven't seen it here. And this is the beginnings of, I think, what we're going to see. But years down the road, we're here right now, and we'll have a project starting in the beginning of 2022, which is exciting for us.
Good, thank you, Robert. Jeff, you're unmuted. Did you want to say something? Scott, you are also.
I just wanted to ask Robert, when's groundbreaking? Because it's funny, for the last 4 years, every time I see Robert, I say, now you're going to send us a notice for invitation for groundbreaking, right, Robert? I think every time I see him for 4 years now, and
yes,
the only break in that 4 years has been because of COVID. Otherwise, I would have been asking him every month for the last year and a half. So
you're pretty consistent, sir.
Oh, am I going to leave that one alone? Okay.
Well, I would say it's going to be in early 2022.
Good. Christina, bail me out of this thing. Scott, you had your hand up again?
Nope.
Okay. Robert's hand's always up. We ignore him. Let's do a vote. I mean, I think that's what he really wants.
Councilmember Armstrong,
Yes.
Councilmember Burrows,
Yes.
Councilmember Zafar,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Perkins,
Yes.
and Mayor Hudson.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Well, thank you, guys. Go forth, build this thing before they start raising the price on everything.
I knew we should have asked for more money.
Thank you. I'll bring you
I
all
knew
hard
it.
hats.
You know,
Don't you end that always, Robert,
you
with
know.
I should have asked for more.
I'm sorry, I thought I was on mute.
no.
My apologies.
Hey, mute him and let's go on to city manager comments. Take him out, Christina.
Have a good night, guys. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
guys. City Manager Gordon, I want to get these guys home.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not much to report here, just maybe on our atmospheric river event on Sunday.
What atmospheric river event?
The one that flooded a whole bunch of areas. Luckily, our public services team was out, had all the storm drains cleared and cleaned. We did have some tree damages that we cleared rather rapidly. We didn't really experience any major events. We were able to respond to all of them. We had a couple leaks in at our 2401 building and then at the senior center. So we're evaluating that to get that corrected. And other than that, we didn't have any major issues. So we're very happy given the amount of rain that fell. That's all I have for tonight.
Good. I missed it. I was elsewhere. Okay, let's go to public comment. Now's the time. If you have not previously spoken under public comment, which was item number 4, you may raise your hand or use the feature on Zoom or dial *9 on your telephone. I don't think there's anybody. Everybody spoke, unless Gary Albert wants to speak. When it's your turn to talk, we'll call upon your name if provided. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person. Speaker's microphone will be muted once the allotted time. Okay, 12 people don't want to speak. Public comment going once, still no written comment, I assume, twice. Public comment is closed. Council member comments. Okay, starting with the vice mayor in my left corner, then Council member Armstrong.
Okay, went to the Library Advisory Committee meeting. They meet quarterly. Let's see. They spoke about the new wall space for gallery exhibits in the San Ramon Library on Marketplace. Let's see, they also had election of officers. Kyle Levy, who was at the Planning Academy, is now the chair. The Story Walk, we had a discussion on Story Walk, and there's 2 new ones for the spring and the winter. Those have been quite popular. And let's see, the new DVC library is now open. Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Also, the Tri-Valley Transportation Council is working on their strategic expenditure plan update. We've done our Nexus study, so the next step is the strategic expenditure plan. And so that will be, we're meeting tomorrow. There's a subcommittee working on that. And then we'll be presenting the draft to the full committee in December. Ultimately, it'll come to this council for approval. It goes to all the agencies for approval because it's a new expenditure plan and a new fee structure. So that's the biggies. And, I want to thank Joe Gordon and Maria Ferner and our whole public works team. I happened to be out in that rain on Sunday. We drove over to Pleasanton for an event, a family event, and they had down branches all up and down both the Bernal and Main Street. And I didn't see evidence of staff out cleaning it up, but there were branches that were closing entire lanes. And I was really surprised by that. And I also was out in San Ramon and came across none, or I would have called somebody, you know me, but I didn't come across any. So our team was very efficient in getting things cleaned up that needed cleaning up. And I want to thank City Manager Maria and all the public works team. Great job.
Good. Member Armstrong.
Well, I was also out in the middle of that storm, but I was out in up north of Sacramento, standing out in a national wildlife refuge the entire time, doing some personal things. But when I got home, as soon as I walked in the door that evening, my power went out, and just briefly. I usually don't get power loss where I live, but what was good to see was neighbors, and I think this is typical of our San Ramon community. I saw neighbors going outside and going out door to door, checking on the seniors in our neighborhood and those whose lights were not on, offering assistance. So, kudos to our citizens for going out and checking on one another. I did attend the teen council meeting on the 19th of October. A couple of things they talked about. One was creating some videos of things that teens do, going out hiking, library things regarding the libraries, places to hang out, places to go, things going on over at City Center, maybe some ways to reduce stress. And they talked about having a teen council Instagram page and showing some of the kind of the highlight reels of some of those videos. One of the other things they talked about was establishing some focus groups using the teen ambassadors. And these focus groups would be like brainstorming sessions or, listening to other teens and then taking that information as an opportunity to go back and inform Parks and Community Services about what teens are thinking about. And also it's an opportunity for those ambassadors to inform teens about what things are going on in the city. So it was good to see that exchange and the whole idea of getting more teens, not just teen council, but the ambassadors involved and then other teens throughout the community involved in things going on in our city.
Thank you. Sridhar. And Sabina, if you want to wrap up for us.
I don't have any committee meeting updates, but I have community updates this weekend, Saturday, October 30th. We have a Diwali event at Bella Vista School from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. So I'm sure you might have received an email, but if not, please let me know. So it will be great if you can join around 4 p.m. to gather to address the gathering. So that's one update I wanted to give. Thank you.
Okay, Sabina.
Yeah, so I was able to go to an art exhibit called Upcycle Your Heart, which basically the Parks Committee, basically the Parks Division had artists reuse election signs to create art on those. And so if you walk outside City Hall, it's right now there till the 5th of November. And then it's going to move to the Doherty Station. And it was really cool to kind of see that lined up against our promenade there between City Hall and the community center, Acosta Community Center. So that was nice, met with some of the artists. Hopefully it survived the rainstorms over the weekend. And then there's the scarecrow scavenger hunt going on as well. And some of the scarecrows, if you haven't seen, are quite cool. There is, so hopefully some of those survived the rain as well. They were out there Thursday. So when I did that, the Foreign Film Festival is coming up January through March, and the Arts Foundation has taken that on. So make sure to buy your tickets to the Foreign Film Festival and invite your friends to come and join that. What else? Yeah, and I think we're looking forward to again decorating the Christmas trees this holiday season and lighting them up in City Hall. So being part of the Arts Foundation, the Arts Foundation is going to do one. So if the Senior Foundation and some of the other foundations, Library Foundation, are participating in that as well. So may the best tree win. And that's all. No, don't have any other updates. I'm looking forward to the Tri-Valley Mayor's updates this upcoming Thursday.
It's an update? And tell me it was an update.
What do you call it, Mayor?
Just sit there and
It's a
eat,
summit. It's a
whatever it is. Anyway, we'll move on to the mayor's report. Yeah, it's really weird sitting out in the sun watching that 49er game thinking, oh, I missed all this. Had an interesting 5 weeks, 25 appeals for regional housing needs, which we took a big step towards solving our problem today. Actually, I thought San Ramon did pretty well, like blown out of the water. Pleasanton did well. Santa Clara will never let me in cross county lines ever again, but that's the way it goes. They're the ones that should be doing what we approved tonight. Kind of bled a little bit with Marin. I mean, we've got places that probably have been built out for as long as I've been alive. And we're telling them, yeah, you don't allow more than 2 stories, put in 5. This state's getting serious. And this is really going to come down to what the methodology in the HCD, the comment that Scott made earlier is so true. I don't know how you're going to explain it if somebody came before you. And I think Veronica Tam made it clear that if you were in the 5th cycle, you're pretty much approved. On a minor note, I was elected chair of Contra Costa, Central Contra Costa Transit Authority for next year, actually starting now. I have a California Transportation Authority meeting in Sacramento next week, and then off to Orlando for that APTA conference where everything to do with transit shows up. I couldn't talk enough people, and going back, I almost wish I could talk, well, no, we're not going to do that. But I will be bringing back some of the things that are possible, all of the hardware that you use for bus stops, probably 125 different buses. There'll be more now. The autonomous vehicles getting to be a pretty regular there. So I would just say you'll probably have a faster meeting next Tuesday or the next one with Vice Mayor Perkins going, get me out of here. San Joaquin Rail is going to have an interesting update on the 19th. We're going to start taking a look at these hydrogen trains as a renewable. Everything can't be electric. There just isn't enough boron in the world. So we'll see where that goes. And they're starting to look at the possibility of bike sharing at some of these stations. Be very interesting to see what the station looks like that they're going to be planning out in River Island, since we have some people interested in how that's being built out there. But the big one's going to be closing out these RENA numbers. I mean, everybody's upset about this. It's twice the numbers. And when they knocked down Santa Clara by 52,000 units, we caught the rest. So that will be Friday, and I will give you posted when I get back. So being no further comments, unless somebody wants to stay here longer, we are adjourned. You are adjourned, and we are adjourned till the next meeting when Vice Mayor Perkins takes over on November 9th. Thanks for coming out tonight. I think